Chapter 1246. Buzz. The mountain and river cauldron shook. The ancient runes on the cauldron all lit up. The ancient beasts seemed to be coming to life. These were the souls of the ancient beasts that the cauldron had been suppressing for countless years. Terrifying waves spread in all directions, causing the world to lose its color. A terrifying power that could suppress the world began to awaken from the mountain and river cauldron. Roar. The group of corpses roared. All the ancient corpses in the corpse-nurturing ground were alarmed. The entire corpse-nurturing ground was instantly filled with the howling of tigers and black fog. The aura of death was extremely strong. Even the ancient corpse king was roaring anxiously. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Rays of dragon-shaped divine light rushed out from the depths of the hidden dragon ground. The 9 murderous intents of the 9 dragons erupted. The dragon souls were almost awakened. The aura of the mountain and river cauldron made the 9 hidden dragons feel threatened. The purple-gold godly sword blocked the dragon-shaped divine light. The sword was knocked away and slashed towards the mountain and river cauldron. This was the power of a saint. Even the void was silently torn apart. 9 murderous intents. Hei Tian saw this scene and was extremely nervous. The 9 dragon-shaped divine lights broke through the void and rushed towards the mountain and river cauldron. This was equivalent to an advanced saint attacking. Each of the 9 dragon-shaped divine lights contained Tao laws and fragments of the great Tao. Even if a saint came, facing this extreme murderous intent, they would have to retreat. However, this murderous intent was nothing in front of the mountain and river cauldron. The mountain and river cauldron only shook slightly and the 9 murderous intents were knocked away, almost dissipating in the void. Ji Fei soared into the sky and landed on top of the mountain and river cauldron. Boom! The primordial chaos chi erupted from the mountain river cauldron. Each strand of primordial chaos chi that fell from the mountain river cauldron was like a primordial chaos dragon. If it fell from the sky, each strand could destroy a mountain range. After the mountain and river cauldron swallowed the divine light, it showed signs of awakening. The ancient beasts on the body of the cauldron could almost rush out. The azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, the 4 innate godly beasts' divine souls appeared above the mountain river cauldron, emanating terrifying soul power waves. They were the 4 most powerful beast souls among all the beast souls that were sealed in the mountain river cauldron. If the 4 beast souls were fully awakened, they could flatten the 9 heavens hidden dragon region with just the help of the 4 beast souls. The beast souls of the 4 innate divine beasts did not rush out from the mountain and river cauldron. Even so, the aura emitted by the cauldron of mountain and river almost caused the entire void to collapse. The entire world was shaking. The 9 huge mountain ridges looked like they were about to rise into the sky. The dragon chi of the earth was vast and mighty. The hidden dragon was awakened from its slumber, and there was a vague dragon roar in the void. At this moment, Ji Fei sat cross-legged on top of the mountain and river cauldron. His entire body was filled with true power. Between his eyebrows, there was a flash of divine light. Then, a small figure rushed out from between his eyebrows. This was Ji Fei's primordial spirit. After Ji Fei's primordial spirit rushed out from his Niwen palace, it immediately entered into the mountain and river cauldron. He connected with the soul of the mountain and river cauldron, causing the mountain and river cauldron to awaken. The interior of the mountain and river cauldron was like a boundless world. Many of the most important things were kept by Ji Fei in this ancient cauldron. Very quickly, Ji Fei felt the soul energy ripple of the mountain and river cauldron's soul. Buzz. The void shook and the void was like a layer of transparent water rippling. A wave of energy ripple that could shock the 9 heavens and 10 earths was emitted from the mountain and river cauldron. The land of Hidden Dragon was immediately impacted. It was as if there was a huge earthquake. Huge rocks rolled down from the 9 mountain ridges. It was actually showing signs of collapsing. Only the deepest part of the land of Hidden Dragon, where the 9 dragons converged, was considered peaceful. The unimaginable pressure from the mountain and river cauldron engulfed the entire land of Hidden Dragon in an instant. Nothing could resist it, not even the heaven-defying pattern of heaven and earth. Not to mention the 9 hidden dragons, Even if the 9-headed real dragons were here, they would be suppressed. On the ground, He Tian felt his soul trembling. He could not help but kneel down. This was completely involuntary. It was as if he was facing a supreme god. He was filled with natural reverence. Even the zombies in the corpse-nurturing ground quietened down. Divine power of the extreme path. Only the divine power of the extreme path could have such power. He Tian was stunned. He was tongue-tied and could not say a word. His lips were even trembling. An ancient cauldron became the only thing in the world. No one could resist this extremely terrifying divine power. Even the physical body of an advanced-level warrior could not withstand it. The supreme power of the extreme path saints of the ancient path was evident. One should know that this was only their weapon. An extreme path saint weapon could not be compared to an extreme path saint. The terrifying power of the mountain and river cauldron has not been fully displayed. Ji Fei was truly stunned. He could not imagine how powerful an extreme path saint weapon was. He was very clear, and no one knew better than him, that only a small part of the power of the mountain and river cauldron had been activated. But this kind of power was enough. The mountain and river cauldron shocked the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Chaotic primordial chi descended from it, stabilizing a part of the void. The 9 huge mountain ridges were also gradually suppressed. An extreme path saint weapon could break the sky and destroy everything. Ji Fei thought it was an exaggeration. But looking at it now, it was not an exaggeration. An extreme path saint weapon really had supreme power. It was hard to estimate. If the extreme path saint weapon did not awaken, it was just a dead object. Only a true saint could awaken it. And to unleash the power of the extreme path, an even greater amount of spiritual energy was needed. This. Ji Fei was a little absent-minded. If a saint-level figure were to wield such a weapon, he would indeed be able to move unhindered throughout the world and fear no one. Rumble, the mountain and river cauldron pressed down from the sky, and the 9 huge mountain ridges began to be completely suppressed. The 9 hidden dragon veins gradually calmed down, and the 9 dragon-shaped killing intents also dissipated in the void. Although it did not truly display the ultimate extreme path saint weapon, this 9 heaven hidden dragon killing formation was still suppressed by the mountain and river cauldron. The 9 hidden dragon veins could no longer create any waves. Bang! The mountain and river cauldron pressed down on the ground. An ancient symbol with the mountain and river cauldron as the center spread out in all directions, imprinting itself into the void. The entire world became quiet. In the corpse breeding ground, the corpses seemed to have lost all their power and fell to the ground. The death aura that enveloped the corpse breeding ground had already been dispersed by the aura of the mountain and river cauldron. Roar. The ancient corpse emperor was still roaring. The left side of his body was shining with a golden light, surging with golden true power. The right side of his body was as black as ink with a vast death aura. Although it had been dead for countless years, this indestructible martial physique instinctively displayed the unyielding will of a supreme martial artist. This made Ji Fei and He Tian feel inconceivable. Worthy of being a saint-level indestructible martial physique, it still hasn't fallen. Ji Fei and He Tian couldn't help but exclaim. At this time, the ancient corpse emperor was half kneeling on the ground, enduring the endless pressure from the mountain and river cauldron, and could no longer stand up. Bang! Chapter 1247. It had to be said that He Tian's formation mastery had reached an extraordinary level. He actually managed to awaken the mountain and river cauldron. Rumble, the mountain and river cauldron, which was suppressing the earth, shook as countless Tao runes appeared in the void. The ancient cauldron shook the 9 heavens and 10 earths as if it was suppressing the grand Tao of the heaven and earth. The heaven-defying 9 heavens hidden dragon was immediately suppressed by the mountain and river cauldron. The 9 earth dragon veins became completely silent as the 9 hidden dragon's murderous intents dissipated in the void. The mountain and river cauldron could suppress the 9 heavens and 10 earths. It was the nemesis of all earth dragon veins. Even the earth's ancestral veins would be suppressed by this extreme sacred cauldron. Without any suspense, the awakened mountain and river cauldron was absolutely terrifying. The 9 hidden dragon veins could no longer cause any trouble at this time. Ji Fei sat cross-legged on top of the mountain and river cauldron. With a thought, he guided the cauldron's unstoppable power to blow away the immortal corpse king inside the corpse breeding ground. After the hidden dragon ground was suppressed, all the corpses in the corpse breeding ground seemed to have lost their strength and fell to the ground in disorder as if they had turned into motionless corpses. Only the immortal corpse king was still roaring and struggling, unwilling to yield to the extreme divine power of the mountain and river cauldron. However, the immortal corpse king was as weak as an ant in front of the mountain and river cauldron. It was suppressed by the divine power of the mountain and river cauldron to the point that it could not stand up. Bam! The mountain and river cauldron shook as an even more powerful force spread out from the cauldron. This part of the void seemed to solidify as everything was suppressed. No matter how powerful the ancient corpse king was and how strong its body was, it was suppressed to the ground and couldn't stand up. What is happening inside? Outside the hidden dragon ground, Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan sensed an aura that made his heart palpitate. Even his soul was trembling. This was an aura that was even more terrifying than a sacred aura. Could it be that an extreme sacred weapon has appeared inside? Yuan Jiyu was bewildered and did not dare to rashly enter the area ahead. He could see that this inconspicuous area was actually the legendary hidden dragon ground. Someone used a supreme technique to move the hidden dragon ground here to block the entrance to the saint burial ground, causing cultivators below the saint realm to shrink back. The hidden dragon ground could be said to be heaven-defying. Only a saint existence would have the ability to explore it. Immortal Emperor Yuan Jiyu knew his own limits. Even though he had the saint artifact, the flying immortal sword, this place was still not something he could enter. If he was not careful, he would die inside. Although immortal Emperor Yuan Jiyu was tempted, he had his reservations and did not dare to take the risk. He never imagined that all of this was caused by Ji Fei and Mai Tian. At this moment, Ji Fei used the mountain and river cauldron to suppress the surroundings. In the entire land of Hidden Dragon, apart from himself and Hei Tian, everything else was suppressed. Buzz! The mountain and river cauldron shook from time to time. Ancient runes appeared on it. This was a complete Grand Dao. The entire world was almost crushed by the power of this Grand Dao. Swoosh! Ji Fei flew up from the mountain and river cauldron and directly stepped into the void. He arrived next to the ancient corpse king in the corpse breeding ground. Roar! The ancient corpse king roared and struggled. This corpse king was different. The other corpses had been completely suppressed by the mountain and river cauldron, but this corpse king was still unyielding. This was the instinct of a supreme warrior. They did not respect the heavens or the earth, they only respected themselves. Although the divine soul had dissipated for countless years, leaving behind only an indestructible body, the unyielding instinct of a supreme warrior was still reflected in this indestructible body. How terrifying! This indestructible golden body must have been an invincible warrior when it was alive. It was definitely a king among the saints. Hei Tian also arrived in front of the corpse king at this time. Unyielding in front of an extreme sacred weapon, what kind of invincible will was this? It was really hard to imagine. The golden battle power on the left side of the ancient corpse king was surging, causing Ji Fei and Hei Tian to feel a strong pressure. It was as if they were facing a volcano that could erupt at any time, causing their hearts to palpitate. Ji Fei did not hesitate and directly sat cross-legged on the ground. Then, a small figure rushed out from the mountain and river cauldron and entered the space between Ji Fei's eyebrows. His origin spirit returned to his body. Hei Tian knew that Ji Fei wanted to seize the ancient corpse king's martial Dao source, so he retreated and directly headed towards the depths of the hidden dragon ground. The place where the 9 dragons converged would definitely give birth to something heaven-defying. Perhaps that immortal herb, the blue descent godly grass, had escaped to that place. Thinking of that, Erebus couldn't help but get excited. This guy, Ji Fei, saw Hei Tian heading towards the center of the hidden dragon ground. How could he not know what this guy wanted to do? But at this time, Ji Fei couldn't care less. The most important thing right now was to draw out the martial Dao source from the immortal martial physique and let it be absorbed by his own martial physique. This way, he would be reborn and his martial physique would reach another level. Ji Fei channeled the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. His entire being suddenly became transcendent, like an immortal king from the 9 heavens descending to the mortal world with a mighty immortal aura. Swoosh! The space between Ji Fei's eyebrows lit up again. A small figure slowly walked out from Ji Fei's forehead. This was a little person that looked exactly like Ji Fei. Divine Snatch. Ji Fei directly used one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, Divine Snatch. The primordial spirit that came out from the Niwen Palace immediately turned into a divine light and entered the ancient corpse emperor's body. The moment Ji Fei's primordial spirit entered the body, the ancient corpse emperor immediately stopped roaring and calmed down. Then, the left side of the ancient corpse emperor's body seemed to be burning. The martial Tao source contained in half of the body was evaporating. Strands of golden light escaped from the left side of the ancient corpse emperor's body and entered Ji Fei's body. He was using the God-seizing secret technique to refine this indestructible martial body, refining the martial Tao source power contained within it. The God-seizing secret technique could not only seize one's divine soul, but it could also refine one's physical body and seize its power. Metal true power continuously rose from the immortal martial physique and entered Ji Fei's body. It made Ji Fei feel as if his whole body was bathed in sunlight. His whole body felt warm. The martial Tao source didn't need to be refined. Ji Fei's martial physique could completely absorb it. As this power continued to flow into Ji Fei's body, Ji Fei's martial physique began to change. Ji Fei felt that all the bones in his body were vibrating, and his flesh, blood, tendons, and bones were vibrating. There seemed to be muffled thunder rumbling inside his body, and every pore on his body was gushing with golden light. Chapter 1248. Rumble. The rumbling sounds coming from Ji Fei's body were getting louder and louder. It was as if there was an angry thunder roaring inside his body, and his entire body was emitting a dazzling divine light. Yisu Novel 1. The yin and yang true force in Ji Fei's body was vast and mighty. His blood and qi soared to the sky, and the yin and yang forces intertwined. Black and white lights gradually formed a yin and yang tai chi diagram above his head. The metal true force that rushed out from the immortal corpse emperor constantly entered Ji Fei's body and was transformed by Ji Fei's martial arts cultivation technique into yin and yang essence qi. Yin and yang could be transformed into the 5 elements, and the 5 elements could also be transformed into yin and yang. The martial Tao source in Ji Fei's body and the ancient corpse emperor's martial Tao source came from the same source. Ji Fei didn't spend much effort to transform the ancient corpse emperor's martial Tao source into his own power. Too powerful. Ji Fei used the godly seizing secret technique to refine the immortal holy corpse emperor, but the martial Tao true force contained in the immortal martial body was too vast, as if it was endless. For Ji Fei, the martial Tao source power in the immortal martial body was a peerless divine treasury. This divine treasury was being refined by him bit by bit. In less than half an hour, Ji Fei felt that his body seemed to swell up from the continuous flow of the immortal martial body's power. Under the impact of the martial path true force, Ji Fei's blood, flesh, tendons, and bones began to show signs of metamorphosis. His bones were shattering and then reforming as the martial path true force washed over Ji Fei's martial physique. The impurities in his bones and flesh were further refined. Ji Fei's bone body began to transform into a flawless bone body, and the power from his flesh and blood became even greater. When the power that the flesh and bones could hold reached the peak, the flesh and bones would not be able to withstand the strong pressure brought by the martial Tao true force and began to collapse. It was as if Ji Fei's body was being smashed by a divine hammer. Then, his shattered flesh, blood, tendons, and bones were reformed by his exuberant vitality. The bone-chilling sound of bones breaking could be heard from Ji Fei's body. The martial Tao true power was vast and mighty, and Ji Fei's body was gradually enveloped by a ball of yin-yang divine light. As the yin and yang true force intertwined, Ji Fei's body started to emit the aura of a Tao charm. Roar. Ji Fei's roar came from within the yin-yang energy mass. The pain of tempering one's flesh, blood, tendons, and bones was not something an ordinary person could endure. At this moment, even Ji Fei couldn't help but roar. Half of the indestructible martial body's body seemed to be burning at this time, emitting a bright golden aura, like a golden divine fire burning. The martial Tao source of the indestructible martial body was constantly being refined. The black death chi on the right side of the martial body gradually moved towards the left side. The balance of power in the indestructible corpse emperor's body was being broken. The death chi in the indestructible corpse emperor's body was very powerful. Even Ji Yu Fei's primordial spirit that entered the corpse emperor's body felt great danger. If his primordial spirit was contaminated by this death chi, it would most likely be seriously injured. Ji Yu Fei sensed that there seemed to be something strange in the death chi of the ancient corpse emperor that was controlling the ancient corpse emperor. There was a trace of evil aura in the death chi. However, the martial Tao source of the ancient corpse emperor contained a fragment of the grand Tao, which shocked Ji Yu Fei to the extreme. This was an incomplete grand Tao. Within the golden martial Tao true power, there were Tao runes looming, which was the manifestation of the grand Tao fragment. This is, when Ji Yu Fei sensed the Tao runes in the indestructible martial body, he couldn't help but be surprised and happy. On the left side of the corpse emperor's body, every bone was branded with Tao runes. The Tao is me, I am the Tao is with me. In Ji Yu Fei's ears, there seemed to be someone whispering. It was as if someone was explaining some kind of grand Tao in his ears, giving him a feeling of dispelling the clouds and seeing the clear blue sky. Who cares about the 3,000 grand Taos? I only cultivate my own Tao and walk my own path. Ji Yu Fei somewhat understood. He evolved his martial Tao cultivation method to capture the grand Tao runes in the ancient corpse emperor's body and to comprehend the mysterious grand Tao of heaven and earth. This was not evolving and recreating the Tao of others. The Tao runes in the indestructible corpse emperor's body were only a reference to guide Ji Yu Fei, allowing Ji Yu Fei's heart to sense the grand Tao. Tao, what is Tao? Ji Yu Fei's thoughts began to enter a wonderful state, as if he was detached from the world. The sounds around him seemed to have become extremely distant, as if they were coming from beyond the heavens. His mind wandered, comprehending the heaven and earth. Faintly, Ji Yu Fei felt that he had grasped something, but he didn't seem to have grasped anything. Time seemed to have stopped, but the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao were still operating. The martial Tao origin in the indestructible corpse emperor's body was constantly being refined by Ji Yu Fei. The yin-yang true force was vast and mighty, and the black and white energies were lingering. After an unknown amount of time, it felt like thousands of years, but it also felt like only a moment. Ji Yu Fei woke up from his state of mind wandering. Boom! The yin-yang true force in his body, the moment Ji Yu Fei woke up, swept out in all directions. The yin-yang true force intertwined, and blurry traces appeared in the void. Each blurry trace emitted a trace of Tao rhyme, seemingly able to attract the power of the grand Tao. Swish! Ji Yu Fei suddenly opened his eyes. 2 bolts of lightning flashed in the void, and the dazzling divine light disappeared into his eyes. The moment Ji Yu Fei opened his eyes, the yin-yang true force intertwined, condensing all the blurry traces, and flew back towards Ji Yu Fei, entering Ji Yu Fei's body. At the same time, Ji Yu Fei's Yuan spirit also completely refined the martial Tao origin in the indestructible corpse emperor's body. A dazzling golden light, like a golden sun, rose from the left side of the indestructible corpse emperor's body. A tiny figure was sitting cross-legged in that ball of golden light. The pitch-black deathly aura finally completely occupied the indestructible golden body. The indestructible corpse emperor roared again and struggled again. Although it was suppressed by the mountain and river cauldron, it was still ferocious. The martial Tao origin rose from the indestructible corpse emperor's body, and then flew towards Ji Yu Fei. The dazzling golden divine light emitted a dazzling golden light, illuminating this part of the world. A terrifying fluctuation spread out from the divine light, causing Ji Yu Fei's heart to palpitate. This was an invincible power. As long as he obtained this power, Ji Yu Fei's cultivation could make a breakthrough. On the martial Tao origin, there were faint traces of the grand Tao. This was the power of a sage. At this time, the blurry traces that Ji Yu Fei evolved with the yin-yang true force were imprinted into his body. Each blurry trace was imprinted on Ji Yu Fei's bones. The martial Tao origin divine light that rose from the indestructible martial body wrapped around Ji Yufei's Yuan spirit and descended towards the top of Ji Yufei's head. Then, it entered Ji Yufei's body. Boom. Chapter 1249. The martial source of the indestructible martial body was too powerful. Even Ji Yufei's emperor martial body was unable to withstand it. The instant the martial source of the indestructible martial body entered his body, his flesh exploded into a bloody mist. Even the sovereign bone body on Ji Yufei's body began to crack like a spider web. This horrified Ji Yufei. He never imagined that the martial Tao source of the indestructible martial body would be so powerful. It was too frightening. If it weren't for the vague Tao marks that he had condensed and branded on his bones, even his sovereign bone body would have collapsed. Ji Yufei's mind wandered as he comprehended heaven and earth. He successfully used the great Tao fragments contained in the martial Tao source of the indestructible martial body to gain enlightenment and condense his own Tao marks. However, these weren't Tao marks because they were too vague. They were branded on his bones and were almost indistinct. They were difficult to grasp, but there were still Tao charms circulating around them. It was this indistinct mark of the great Tao that prevented Ji Yufei's body from shattering. Raw. Ji Yufei's divine sense was like the sea. He used all his strength to guide this vast martial Tao source power to flow through his bones. The vague Tao marks that were branded on his bones gradually began to emit a faint light. The great Tao marks condensed the martial Tao source power. Ji Yufei's cracked bones began to gradually repair, and the cracks on his bones slowly disappeared. Tao charms began to circulate on Ji Yufei's bones. Imprinting the great Tao into his body, Ji Yufei's bones were transforming into saint bones. Only a saint could imprint the great Tao that they had comprehended into their flesh, bones, and blood, allowing them to coexist with the great Tao, becoming immortal and indestructible. Endless divine light bloomed from between Ji Yufei's eyebrows. A tiny figure sat cross-legged on his forehead, exuding a vast and mighty immortal Tao aura. This was Ji Yufei's primordial spirit. The current Ji Yufei was no longer an ordinary cultivator. He was more powerful and frightening than the average cultivator since he had mastered the divine arts of the immortal path. Since ancient times, there had never been a precedent of a martial artist cultivating a primordial spirit. This was because there was no need to cultivate a primordial spirit on the path of martial arts. A martial artist who had succeeded in cultivating a primordial spirit would have their life imprint spread throughout their entire body. Every strand of hair, every drop of blood, would have life. It didn't matter if such an existence had a primordial spirit or not. The martial Tao source that he had seized from the indestructible martial body was constantly being refined by Ji Yufei into his bones. His entire body was blooming with a dull golden light, as if he were cast from pure gold. An extremely powerful aura was emitted from the bone and spread in all directions, filling the entire land of Hidden Dragon. Boss succeeded. In the depths of the land of Hidden Dragon, He Tian suddenly turned his head, his face filled with shock. He hadn't entered the 9 Dragons congregation grounds yet because it was simply too heaven-defying. The entire land of Hidden Dragon was suppressed by the mountain and river cauldron. This caused He Tian to be wild with joy. Who knew how many years of divine herbs had been growing in the land of Hidden Dragon for him to pluck? Especially the divine herbs that grew in the depths of the land of Hidden Dragon. Each stalk was a king herb, and the medicinal power of several king herbs was comparable to a small portion of the immortal divine herbs. He Tian's harvest was undoubtedly bountiful. This fellow didn't stop and directly walked forward. After a series of twists and turns, the front suddenly widened. Then, He Tian saw an incomparably shocking scene. 9 giant dragon heads appeared in front of He Tian. Each dragon head was like an unscalable mountain, giving off a strong sense of oppression. This was the origin of the land of Hidden Dragon in the 9 heavens. The 9 earth dragon veins originated from here and spread outwards, with the dragon heads inside and the dragon tails outside. This arrangement was very similar to the 49 earth ancestor veins in the Great Peerless Tomb. However, there were only 9 earth dragon veins here, while the Great Peerless Tomb had 49 earth ancestor veins. The earth dragon veins and the earth ancestor veins couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. At this time, outside the land of Hidden Dragon, the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan also sensed the powerful aura from Jiyu Fei. His expression changed because he recognized that it was Jiyu Fei's aura. That kid, the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan, was bewildered. Jiyu Fei seemed to have obtained a great opportunity in the land of Hidden Dragon. He could feel that Jiyu Fei's aura was rapidly increasing. He broke through. The aura coming from the land of Hidden Dragon made his heart palpitate. There was an extremely powerful force condensing, and this force made his expression change. At this time, a vague figure suddenly appeared near the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan. It stood quietly in the void like a gust of wind, not causing any fluctuations. Who is it? Celestial Emperor Yuan Gu's expression suddenly changed. Then, he waved his hand at the blurry figure. The flying celestial sword that was flying around him immediately emitted a dazzling divine light. It turned into a divine rainbow and slashed towards the figure. Who was the Eastern Land Emperor's Yan? Someone had appeared near him, where he wouldn't be able to discover him. Swish! The divine rainbow-like sword light was not blocked at all. It directly chopped down on that figure. There was no point of force. It was as if it was chopping down on the air. The Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan was shocked. The illusory figure was slashed in half by the sword light of the flying immortal sword, but then it reformed. Bam! The person didn't say anything and directly slapped at the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan. Whoosh! Astral winds rose as that silhouette blasted out with a palm strike, bringing forth endless astral winds. Each and every gust of astral wind was like a transparent divine weapon, slicing apart the void, causing pitch-black spatial cracks to appear in the air. Buzz! The flying immortal sword let out a deafening sound that resounded through the 9 heavens. The sword light soared thousands of feet, and an unparalleled sword chi suddenly erupted. The sword chi soared to the 9 heavens, displaying the great power of the flying immortal sword. It reversed in the air and slashed at the figure. The Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan cultivated the supreme way of the sword. The speed and power of the sword light instantly soared 10 times. Wherever the sword light passed, the world seemed to be split in half. At the same time, the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan opened his mouth and spat out a sword light that looked like the Milky Way. This was the natal sword energy that he had cultivated for countless years. The sword chi was mighty in the sky and on the ground. The Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan attacked the mysterious figure from both the front and the back. Anyone who could come here was definitely not weak. This person was like the wind. Although he could be seen with the naked eye, he didn't leave any traces. There were no fluctuations coming from his body. The sword light spat out by the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan dispersed the terrifying astral winds and broke the palm of the mysterious figure. However, the mysterious figure walked in the endless sword light. His body was like a gentle breeze, and it was difficult for the sword light to hit him. It was as if no technique could touch him. What? Chapter 1250. Volume II page 1256. The mysterious strong man. Page 11. The indestructible martial body's martial source energy was far too powerful. Even Jiyu Fei's emperor martial body found it hard to withstand it. His flesh and blood exploded the moment the martial source energy entered his body, turning into a bloody mist. Even the sovereign skeletal body on Jiyu Fei's body began to crack like a spider web. This caused Jiyu Fei to be incomparably shocked. He had never imagined that the martial Tao source of the indestructible martial body would be this powerful. It was too frightening. If he hadn't condensed a vague Tao mark on his bone body, even his emperor bone body would have collapsed. Jiyu Fei's mind wandered as he comprehended heaven and earth. He successfully drew upon the great Tao fragments contained within the indestructible martial body's martial arts source. He gained some comprehension and condensed his own Tao marks. However, this still couldn't be considered a Tao imprint, because it was too indistinct. It was engraved on the bone body, almost impossible to see clearly, difficult to grasp. However, there were Tao auras swirling about. It was precisely this indistinct brand of the Grand Tao that prevented Jiyu Fei's body from collapsing. Raw. Jiyu Fei's divine sense was as vast as the ocean. He used all his strength to guide this extremely vast martial origin energy to flow through his bones. The blurry marks branded on his bones gradually began to glow. The Tao marks of the great Tao were condensing the power of the martial Tao source. Ji Yufei's cracked bones began to gradually repair, and the cracks on his bones slowly disappeared. Tao runes began to circulate on Ji Yufei's bone body. Imprinting the great path on his own body, Ji Yufei's bone body was transforming into a saint bone. Only a saint could imprint the great path that he had comprehended into his own flesh, bones, and blood, so that his flesh, bones, and blood could coexist with the great path and become immortal. Boundless divine light shone from the center of Ji Yufei's brows. A small figure sat on his forehead. The aura of the immortal Tao was vast and mighty. That was Ji Yufei's primordial spirit. The current Ji Yufei was no longer an ordinary cultivator. He was more powerful and frightening than the average cultivator since he had mastered the divine arts of the immortal path. Since ancient times, there had never been a precedent of a martial artist cultivating a primordial spirit. This was because there was no need to cultivate a primordial spirit on the path of martial arts. A martial artist who had succeeded in cultivating a primordial spirit would have their life imprint spread throughout their entire body. Every strand of hair, every drop of blood, would have life. It didn't matter if such an existence had a primordial spirit or not. The martial Tao source that he had seized from the indestructible martial body was constantly being refined by Ji Yufei into his bones. His entire body was blooming with a dull golden light, as if he were cast from pure gold. An extremely powerful aura was emitted from the bone and spread in all directions, filling the entire land of Hidden Dragon. Boss succeeded. In the depths of the land of Hidden Dragon, He Tian suddenly turned his head. His face was filled with shock. He hadn't entered the Nine Dragons congregation grounds yet. This was because the Nine Dragons congregation grounds was simply too heaven-defying. The entire land of Hidden Dragon was suppressed by the mountain and river cauldron. This made He Tian wild with joy. Who knew how many years of divine herbs had been growing in the land of Hidden Dragon for him to pluck? Especially the divine herbs that grew in the depths of the land of Hidden Dragon. Each stalk was a king herb. The medicinal power of several king herbs was enough to match a small portion of an immortal divine herb's efficacy. He Tian's harvest was undoubtedly bountiful. This fellow didn't stop and directly walked forward. After a series of twists and turns, the front suddenly widened. Then, He Tian saw an incomparably shocking scene. 9 giant dragon heads appeared in front of He Tian. Each dragon head was like an unscalable mountain, giving off a strong sense of oppression. This was the origin of the land of Hidden Dragon in the 9 heavens. The 9 earth dragon veins originated from here and spread outwards. The dragon heads were inside and the dragon tails were outside. This arrangement was very similar to the 49 earth ancestor veins in the Great Tomb. However, there were only 9 earth dragon veins here, while the Great Tomb had 49 earth ancestor veins. The earth dragon veins and the earth ancestor veins couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. At this time, outside the land of Hidden Dragon, the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan also sensed the powerful aura coming from Ji Yufei. His expression changed because he recognized that it was Ji Yufei's aura. That kid, the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan, was bewildered. Ji Yufei seemed to have obtained a great opportunity in the land of Hidden Dragon. He could feel that Ji Yufei's aura was rapidly increasing. He broke through. The aura coming from the land of Hidden Dragon made his heart palpitate. There was an extremely powerful force condensing, and this force made his expression change. At this time, a vague figure suddenly appeared near the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan. It stood quietly in the void like a gust of wind, not causing any fluctuations. Who is it? Celestial Emperor Yuan Gu's expression suddenly changed. Then, he waved his hand at the blurry figure. The flying celestial sword that was flying around him immediately emitted a dazzling divine light. It turned into a divine rainbow and slashed towards the figure. Who was the Eastern Land's Emperor's Yan? Someone had appeared near him, where he wouldn't be able to discover him. Swish! The divine rainbow-like sword light was not blocked at all. It directly chopped down on that figure. There was no point of force. It was as if it was chopping down on the air. The Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yan was shocked. The illusory figure was slashed in half by the sword light of the flying immortal sword, but then it reformed. Bam! The figure didn't say anything and directly slapped at the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's yarn. Whoosh! Astral winds rose as that silhouette blasted out with a palm strike, bringing forth endless astral winds. Each and every gust of astral wind was like a transparent divine weapon, slicing apart the void, causing pitch-black spatial cracks to appear in the air. Buzz! The flying immortal sword let out a deafening sound that resounded through the 9 heavens. The sword light soared for thousands of feet, and an unparalleled sword chi suddenly erupted. The sword chi rushed up to the 9 heavens, displaying the great power of the flying immortal sword. It reversed in the air and slashed at the figure. The Yuan Jiyu Emperor's yarn cultivated the supreme way of the sword. The speed and power of the sword light instantly soared 10 times. Wherever the sword light passed, the world seemed to be split in half. At the same time, the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's yarn opened his mouth and spat out a sword light that looked like the Milky Way. This was the natal sword energy that he had cultivated for countless years. The sword chi was mighty in the sky and on the ground. The Yuan Jiyu Emperor's yarn attacked the mysterious figure from the front and the back. Anyone who could come here was definitely not weak. This person was like the wind. Although he could be seen with the naked eye, he didn't leave any traces, and there were no fluctuations coming from his body. The sword light spat out by the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's yarn dispersed the terrifying astral winds and broke the palm of the mysterious figure. However, the mysterious figure walked in the endless sword light. His body was like a gentle breeze, and it was difficult for the sword light to hit him. It was as if no technique could touch him. What? Chapter 1251. Chapter 1257, Wind Mystic Arts page 11. The mysterious expert's figure was faint and illusory as if he didn't have a physical body. Tao runes would appear under his feet with every step he took, as if he was walking on the Grand Tao. In just a few steps, the figure had already rushed out of the endless sword light. He then stretched out his right hand and slashed at the ancient emperor's yarn. The ancient emperor's yarn instantly felt a dangerous aura, and his hair stood on end. He didn't even think about it before disappearing without a trace. The moment the ancient emperor's yarn disappeared, a pitch-black spatial crack silently appeared in the void where he was. The spatial crack was thousands of meters long, and the void had actually been torn apart. The next moment, the ancient emperor's yarn's figure appeared several miles away. He couldn't help but turn pale with fright when he saw this scene. This person could casually tear apart the void with a single slash. He was truly abnormally powerful. Who the hell are you? The ancient emperor's yarn was shaken. Such a character and such a method made him feel threatened. The opponent's attack was simply untraceable. This seemed to be a counter to the chaotic secret art, one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. It was invisible and traceless, making it very difficult to reverse. Even though the ancient emperor's yarn possessed an unbeatable immortal Tao killing art, he couldn't help but be shocked. This mysterious person couldn't be a legendary character, right? In ancient times, there were brilliant people who wanted to create a great art that could restrain the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, but no one succeeded. No one claimed to have created a supreme art that could restrain the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. However, there were many talented people in the immemorial era, and no one knew if there were any who could create a supreme art that could counter the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. This mysterious expert gave the ancient emperor's yarn a feeling that he didn't know how to deal with him. That person strode through the void and approached the ancient emperor's yarn. He was like a gentle breeze that didn't emit any aura, just like air. It was too terrifying. Flying immortal sword, Yuan Jiyu Emperor's yarn pointed his sword finger and the flying celestial sword immediately issued a deafening roar. The dazzling sword light turned into a supreme immortal light that fell from the sky and strangled the figure. Under the sword light, the void was annihilated. The primordial emperor's yarn was going all out. However, that person remained calm under the peerless sword light. He merely took one step forward and dodged the terrifying sword light that was descending from the sky. Swoosh! This part of the void was destroyed by this sword light, nothing existed anymore. This was the might of a Saint-tier sword light, a trace of Saint-tier might lingered in the world. That person took strange steps, and Tao patterns appeared under his feet. He gave off the feeling that he was stepping on the great Tao and looking down on the world. Even the primordial Emperor Xian felt his heart palpitate. The mysterious powerhouse's movement technique was extremely fast. After avoiding the peerless swordlight that fell from the sky, he instantly arrived in front of Emperor Xian and pressed his palm against Emperor Xian's chest. The primordial Emperor Xian was shocked. The opponent's speed was absolutely rare and seemed to be even better than Gu Phase 8 Desolation Step. Chaotic reversal. The primordial Emperor Xian roared, and a wave of celestial force rushed out of his body. The void around him rippled like transparent water. The void around him was reversed by the celestial force. However, a scene that left the primordial Emperor Xian dumbfounded appeared. The mysterious powerhouse's palm actually penetrated the layer of transparent ripples around him and pressed against his chest. How is this possible? Bam! The primordial Emperor Xian was blasted thousands of feet away. His shirt was shattered by an extremely powerful palm force, revealing his jade-white skin. There was a bloody palm print in the middle of his chest. His sternum was broken, and a trace of scarlet blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. The body of a half-step sage was very strong, so the primordial Emperor Xian's body was not destroyed by the mysterious powerhouse. However, the palm of the mysterious powerhouse still caused a great impact on the primordial Emperor Xian. The person did not say a word from beginning to end, nor did he emit any murderous aura. He was calm and indifferent, as if he did not exist in this world. The celestial force in the primordial Emperor Xian's body was vast and mighty. 9 rays of celestial light surrounded his body, and the flying immortal sword was hovering above his head. He stared coldly at the figure in front of him. How is this possible? How could you break this supreme killing technique? The primordial Emperor Xian's face revealed a look of disbelief. It should be known that the 9 secrets of the immortal path was a supreme killing technique created by the supreme Tao ancestor. The chaotic reversal secret technique was known as an invincible supreme technique, but now it had been easily broken by someone. This shocked the primordial Emperor Xian to the extreme. The mysterious person still did not speak. Instead, he pointed with his finger. The primordial Emperor Xian felt the airflow around his body move. Then, without any warning, a speck of divine light appeared in front of him and shot toward the space between his eyebrows. This speck of divine light appeared very suddenly and was very close to the primordial Emperor Xian. The primordial Emperor Xian only had time to tilt his head. The speck of divine light brushed past the primordial Emperor Xian's face and left a bloody mark on it. This is the power of wind. The primordial Emperor Xian quickly retreated. He finally understood how the mysterious person had attacked him. The mysterious person was actually using the power of wind. The mysterious person was able to control the airflow in this part of the world without leaving a trace. He had used the power of wind to its peak, and even a half-step saint had been injured by him. The nature of heaven and earth, as well as all kinds of living things, all contained the truth of heaven and earth that could help people comprehend the Tao. Earth, water, wind, and fire were the 4 powers that had appeared when the primordial chaos created the world. Didn't the primordial wind divine sect perish long ago? How could there be someone who knows about the primordial wind divine sect? The primordial Emperor Xian was shocked to the extreme. No wonder the mysterious person's speed was so terrifying. No wonder he could control the power of wind. It seemed that this person cultivated the primordial wind divine sect, one of the great sects of the human race. The first sect master of the primordial wind divine sect was the primordial wind divine. This primordial wind divine was the fastest in the world and could come and go without a trace. He was an extraordinary figure even in ancient times. At this time, the primordial Emperor Xian's injuries had completely healed. His aura had risen to its peak state as if he hadn't suffered any serious injuries. Legend had it that the primordial wind divine sect was an affectionate person. He had offended many people because of his love affairs, which had led to a lot of trouble for the primordial wind divine sect. Chapter 1252. Chapter 1258, Demonic Manifestation. Page 11. The blurry Tao pattern was only in its embryonic form. There were only vague traces and it had yet to take shape. But even so, Ji Yufei's bones still had Dao rhymes circulating around them. Blurry traces were branded on his bones, containing endless origin energy. This was the purest energy in the world. At this moment, Ji Yufei had refined it into his own origin energy and fused it with his own origin energy. Around Ji Yufei's body, the flesh and blood that had exploded also bloomed with dazzling divine light. Every drop of blood flickered with a powerful aura. The origin energy of martial arts that had been seized from the indestructible martial body continued to be refined into his bones. The blurry marks on his bones gradually became clearer. These were the Dao marks that Ji Yufei had comprehended and belonged to himself. It was not the Dao of the indestructible martial body, nor was it the Dao of the supreme martial ancestor who had created the path of martial arts. It was the Dao that belonged to Ji Yufei alone. The reason why Dao severing experts were so powerful was because they had walked their own Dao, severed the Dao of others, and condensed their own Dao energy. Roar. The primordial spirit sitting between Ji Yufei's eyebrows roared to the sky. A terrifying divine sense spread out in all directions, and a circle of ripples that could be seen with the naked eye appeared in the void. The immortal Dao aura on the primordial spirit grew stronger. 9 divine lights circled around the small figure, like a supreme immortal emperor sitting above the 9 heavens. Strands of origin energy of martial arts gathered between his eyebrows and entered the primordial spirit. It refined the origin energy and made the primordial spirit even more powerful. The light ball formed by the origin energy of martial arts bloomed in Ji Yufei's Mudpill Palace, almost illuminating the entire Mudpill Palace. Endless origin energy spread out from Ji Yufei's Mudpill Palace again and again, flowing into Ji Yufei's bones. The Dao rhymes were condensing, and vague Dao marks were constantly branded into Ji Yufei's bones. Then, they appeared on his bones. The origin energy of martial arts that had spread out from Ji Yufei's Mudpill Palace was mostly absorbed by his bones. Ji Yufei's entire bones were like a sacred weapon branded with Dao marks, giving off an extremely powerful feeling. His martial body had once again transformed. The origin energy of martial arts that had sunk into Ji Yufei's Niwen Palace gradually dimmed, while Ji Yufei's Niwen Palace became as bright as immortal jade, surrounded by divine light. Finally, veins reappeared on Ji Yufei's body. Then, veins appeared on his bones. Then, the origin energy of Ji Yufei's Ji blood is. The Dao marks were condensing, and his flesh and blood were reborn. In an instant, Ji Yufei was no longer a set of bones. This time, the origin energy of martial arts had completely refined his martial body from the inside out. At this time, Ji Yufei still did not stop. Although his flesh and blood had been reborn, the origin energy of martial arts that had spread out from his body once again caused Ji Yufei's newly reborn flesh and blood to collapse. Ji Yufei's flesh and blood still could not withstand the extremely powerful origin energy of martial arts that had seeped out from his body, which made him secretly surprised. This body of martial arts was definitely advancing towards the sacred bone. Only the flesh and blood that had been tempered could withstand such power. Ji Yufei began to refine his flesh and blood. The vague Dao marks on his body of martial arts also gradually began to be branded into his flesh and blood. Branding Dao marks on one's flesh and blood, tendons, and bones was a unique method of refining one's body on the martial path. Almighties at the severing path could condense their own Dao marks and draw on the power of the Dao to strengthen their body. Only those at the severing path could use this method and truly embark on the path of an expert. At this time, outside the land of hidden dragons, the Emperor Xian of the primordial era encountered the earth that he had rarely seen in his life. The vague figure seemed to have merged with the great Tao of heaven and earth, completely untraceable. What shocked Celestial Emperor Yuan Jiyu even more was that this mysterious person was able to break his chaotic secret art. One should know that the 9 esoteric arts of immortal Tao were the ultimate arts created by the supreme Tao ancestor. From the ancient Divine Wind sect. As the Emperor of the Eastern Land, the Emperor Xian of the primordial era naturally knew many ancient secrets. Moreover, the Divine Wind sect had not been a small sect in ancient times. The founder of the Divine Wind sect, the Divine Wind sect, had also been a powerhouse in ancient times. However, the Divine Wind sect had not existed for a long time. It seemed that the people of the Divine Wind sect had disappeared overnight. Even the sect master of the Divine Wind sect, who possessed the fastest speed in the world, had disappeared. This matter had caused a huge uproar in the primordial era. A great sect of the human race had actually disappeared, almost causing a great war between the human race, the demons, and the demon race. The mysterious person had not said a word since he had appeared. Could it be a clone? The Emperor Xian of the primordial era was even more shocked. If a clone was already so powerful, wouldn't the main body be able to kill him with a single finger? Swoosh! After a brief confrontation, the Emperor Xian of the primordial era chose to retreat. He and his sword became one, turning into a divine rainbow that soared into the sky and flew directly into the abyss above the earth. The vague figure did not chase after the Emperor Xian of the primordial era and allowed the Emperor Xian of the primordial era to leave. Divine wind. Just as the sword light of the Emperor Xian of the primordial era disappeared into the dusky sky and earth, a wave of divine consciousness came from nearby. Then, a figure silently floated out of the darkness. A heart-palpitating demonic aura immediately filled the void. Demonic chi curled around the figure, and a pair of blood-red eyes flickered in the demonic chi. Demon. The figure that had chased away the Emperor Xian of the primordial era spat out a single word. Then, the mysterious powerhouse directly made a move. Endless astral winds rushed out of his hands like countless invisible divine weapons that blotted out the sky and earth as they slashed towards the demonic figure. From time to time, hair-thin spatial cracks silently appeared in the void. True demon purgatory. The demonic figure shouted loudly. A black whirlpool immediately appeared in front of the demonic figure and absorbed all the invisible astral winds that were slashing towards him. Bam! The void shook and the black whirlpool suddenly enlarged several times. The vast and mighty demonic chi rushed towards the mysterious powerhouse, wanting to swallow him into the black whirlpool. Demons were the greatest enemies of the world. When cultivators encountered demons, they would immediately attack them without any hesitation. The mysterious powerhouse that had chased away the Emperor Xian of the primordial era was also the first one to attack. Boom! The mysterious powerhouse only threw a punch at the killing move of the demonic figure. Although it was just a punch, the entire void shook because of this punch. Then, the black whirlpool in front of the demonic figure dissipated. The endless demonic chi was completely obliterated by the power of the mysterious powerhouse's punch and the demonic figure was sent flying. It's really you, old ghost. Chapter 1253. Volume I, Chapter 1259. Embodiment of Perversion. Page 11. The mysterious expert had chased away the primordial Emperor Xian and displayed his unparalleled battle prowess. He had even broken through the demonic shadow's great technique with a single punch and sent him flying. Wind God, is it really this old ghost? Mo Ying was shocked and angry. He seemed to be very afraid of the mysterious expert. However, the mysterious expert didn't say anything and directly rushed towards Mo Ying. An extremely powerful aura burst forth from the mysterious expert's body, and the demonic shadow was once again forced back by this aura. The mysterious expert hadn't even attacked, but he was already so terrifying. It's just a clone, but it's already this powerful. This time, Mo Ying was truly afraid. When the mysterious powerhouse and the primordial Emperor Xian had exchanged blows, he had been hiding nearby and had witnessed the battle. But from the looks of it now, the Wind God had not displayed his true strength in that battle earlier on. This was something that sent chills down Mo Ying's spine. Rumble, the entire world trembled with the footsteps of the mysterious expert, as if it could collapse at any time. This was the aura of invincibility, looking down on the world. Swoosh! The demonic shadow didn't dare to fight and directly retreated. Its body almost collapsed, and the demonic chi on its body scattered. This demonic shadow didn't have a physical body, it was just an illusion. This was the incarnation of an incomparably powerful demon. However, the demonic clone did not manage to escape very far. The mysterious expert merely pointed with a finger and the demonic clone exploded, destroyed in the void. Such strength, in the pitch-black sky far away, a figure seemed to have fused with the surrounding world. He stood in the air and watched the scene unfold before him in extreme shock. This person was the primordial Emperor Xian. He used one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the anti-emptiness secret art. His aura completely merged with the void of heaven and earth, so no one could discover his existence. Even the mysterious expert in the distance couldn't sense the existence of the Emperor's yarn. No one thought that the Emperor's yarn hadn't gone far. After the mysterious expert killed the incarnation of the Tao Mo, he arrived outside the land of Hidden Dragon. He seemed to hesitate for a moment, but in the end, he still walked into the land of Hidden Dragon. The cauldron of mountain and river emitted a trace of extreme saint might that suppressed the surroundings. Everything in the Hidden Dragon grounds was sealed. No living creatures could walk around, as they were all suppressed to the ground. Even the immortal godly medicine was suppressed there. However, the mysterious expert ignored the extreme power of the mountain river cauldron and walked straight into the land of Hidden Dragon. Moreover, the mysterious expert walked directly in the direction of the mountain river cauldron's aura. At this time, Ji Yufei was sitting cross-legged on the ground. Terrifying cracks were constantly appearing on his body. He didn't know how many times his body had collapsed. Even now, it was still difficult for his body to withstand the formidable power of the martial Tao source of the indestructible martial body. As Ji Yufei circulated his origin energy to refine his body, a figure silently appeared before Ji Yufei without any warning. When Ji Yufei saw this figure, he was so scared that he nearly went berserk. He nearly leaped up from the ground. To think that someone would appear right before him, how could this be possible? The mountain river cauldron suppressed the surroundings. Not to mention a supreme expert, even a half-saint would not be able to withstand the extreme power emitted by the mountain river cauldron. The person silently stood in front of Ji Yufei. He didn't say anything, nor did he do anything. The faint figure was like a wisp of smoke that could dissipate at any time. Ji Yufei's heart trembled. This person was too terrifying. Could it be that he was a saint? In the current world, saints were extinct. In the 3 realms and 6 Taos, there shouldn't be any saints. Whoosh! A purple divine light emerged from between Ji Yufei's eyebrows. A strange fluctuation spread out from between his eyebrows. He had used the martial Tao heavenly eye. An incarnation? When he saw the state of the mysterious person in front of him, Ji Yufei couldn't help but be dumbfounded. It was only an incarnation. An incarnation was able to withstand the extreme power emitted by the mountain river cauldron. What kind of person's incarnation was this? It was so monstrous that it was unbelievable. The person in front of him made Ji Yufei feel uneasy. He was at the most crucial moment of refining the martial Tao origin. If he was affected, it would not be a joke. However, it was impossible for Ji Yufei to stop now because he couldn't. His martial Tao was circulating. His flesh and bones were trembling. A vast amount of qi and blood came out from the top of Ji Yufei's head. It was like a huge dragon that soared into the sky. His qi and blood were like a dragon. Ji Yufei's aura was extremely powerful. Ji Yufei wanted to connect with the mountain river cauldron and suppress the mysterious person in front of him. However, at this time, the mysterious person who had been standing still suddenly moved. The person's hands moved and he was performing a great technique. A divine aura of the great Tao spread out from the mysterious person's hands. Then, strands of Tao power shot towards Ji Yufei and entered Ji Yufei's body. Ji Yufei's body trembled. He felt as if an invisible hand had reached into his body. The flow of his qi and blood was immediately out of his control. His shock was no small matter. His life was in the hands of the mysterious person. This made Ji Yufei extremely shocked. The mysterious person could kill him with a single thought. All the martial Tao true force in his body broke away from Ji Yufei's control. It was guided by the Tao power that the mysterious person had reached into his body and was circulating in a mysterious way. Martial Tao, how could he? To Ji Yufei's disbelief, the mysterious person had actually evolved a supreme martial Tao in his body. This was also recorded in the martial ancestors' true scripture. However, with Ji Yufei's current cultivation, it was impossible for him to cultivate such a supreme technique. Rumble, a muffled sound like thunder came from Ji Yufei's body. He felt as if his body was about to explode. An extremely powerful force was generated in his body. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of bones breaking came from Ji Yufei's body. The powerful force crushed all the bones in his body into pieces. His entire body was instantly covered in blood and flesh. Even his skull was broken. His primordial spirit flew out and floated above the broken flesh. The Tao light lingered around it and it looked solemn. It was like a nine heavens immortal descending to the mortal world. Once this supreme technique was activated, even Ji Yufei's body could not withstand it. However, the mysterious person used Tao power to control everything. Chapter 1254. The mysterious man displayed a supreme technique and evolved the power of the Tao. This made Ji Yufei feel great danger, but at the same time, he saw the hope of advancing. 1*1*, there was no such thing as reaping without sowing. In order to improve one's cultivation and strength, cultivators had to cultivate day and night. In the process of cultivation, they would also encounter all kinds of dangers. However, these dangers were not the most terrifying. The most terrifying thing was when a person lost his confidence. Once he lost confidence, all kinds of negative emotions would emerge. If one's Tao heart was unstable, there was no hope of proving the Tao. One could imagine that a person's state of mind had already determined how far this person could go on the road of cultivation. Ji Yufei's state of mind was extremely firm. He firmly believed that man could conquer nature. Therefore, he always maintained a state of mind that was invincible. He pressed forward on the road of cultivation and went further than people of the same level. Only after experiencing wind and rain could a rainbow be seen. Hardships could train a person's will. Ji Yufei's primordial spirit sat in the void and watched as his body turned into a pile of flesh. It was a shocking sight, but he still did not move. Even his bones, which were branded with vague traces of the great Tao, had shattered at this moment. However, with Ji Yufei's current cultivation base, as long as he had a strand of hair or a drop of blood, he would be able to reconstruct his body. The mysterious man evolved the supreme Tao. Traces of Tao power seeped out from his hands. Like invisible silk threads, they wrapped around Ji Yufei. Under the stimulation of the Tao power, the vague imprint of the Tao that Ji Yufei had comprehended began to emit traces of divine light. His bones were quickly condensed, and every bone had Tao rhymes circulating above it. His flesh and bones were rapidly reconstructing, but just as the reconstruction was completed, the mysterious man mercilessly smashed Ji Yufei's body into pieces. Roar! Ji Yufei roared. Since ancient times, he was probably the only person who had such an unforgettable experience of such a tragic method of refining his body. The cycle of destruction and rebirth changed again and again. Every time Ji Yufei's flesh, blood, tendons, and bones were destroyed, his qi and blood would grow stronger, and the power he could refine into his flesh, blood, tendons, and bones would be even greater. All the impurities in Ji Yufei's body were gradually refined. His body was transforming into a flawless saint body. Every piece of his flesh, even every drop of his blood, contained a tremendous amount of power. A single strand of hair might be able to kill immortals and deities. This was a divine physique that was even more powerful and terrifying than the physical body of great figures. Tao patterns were imprinted on the flesh and blood, achieving the goal of coexisting with the great Tao of heaven and earth. This mysterious person seemed to be refining Ji Yufei's body as a peerless divine material, wanting to forge a human-shaped saint artifact. The power of the Tao was vast and mighty. Every ray of divine light that was emitted from the hands of the mysterious man could crush the ages. What kind of power was this? The magical power displayed by the mysterious man was too incredible. This was a supreme sacred technique that only the sages of ancient times could master. This mysterious man could actually display it so easily. Ji Yufei was already convinced that the original body of this mysterious man was definitely a sage. Why did sages still exist in this world? Ji Yufei was puzzled. His qi, blood, and true force were completely controlled by the other party. Ji Yufei could only use his heart to comprehend the fluctuations of this great technique. Chaotic yin and yang into chaos. Ji Yufei felt that the true force of yin and yang in his body, under the guidance of the mysterious man's Tao power, had actually transformed into a trace of the power of the origin of chaos. This was a sign that the martial body was about to transform. The 5 elements turned into yin and yang turned into chaos. Ji Yufei's martial body was transforming towards the path of the supreme martial body. The indestructible golden body was only a martial body of the sage level. This was a martial body that was condensed by a supreme martial artist who had cultivated the great Tao of metal. The chaotic martial body. This kind of physique was probably already heaven-defying. Legend had it that the supreme martial ancestor had cultivated an invincible great Tao with the chaotic martial body. His own martial body was actually showing signs of transforming into the chaotic martial body. This made it difficult for Ji Yufei to remain calm. Even the primordial spirit that was sitting cross-legged in the void opened its eyes and swept its gaze towards the original body below. The immortal Tao primordial spirit possessed the immortal Tao divine ability. After opening the heavenly eye, everything in Ji Yufei's body was sensed by the immortal Tao primordial spirit. It did not miss even the slightest detail. He saw traces of Tao power passing through his flesh, blood, tendons, and bones. The true force of yin and yang seemed to be burning. The power of yin and yang was vast and mighty. Ji Yufei felt as if his soul was about to shatter. He wanted to scream hysterically, but he could not make any sound. This was a terrifying torment. No one could help him. He could only endure it by himself. If he could endure it, his cultivation and strength would rise to the next level. If he could not endure it, then even if he did not die, he would completely lose the hope of becoming a paragon. The mysterious person was building the Tao foundation for Ji Yufei, the foundation of the great Tao, the foundation of the Tao. For martial artists, power came from the body, and the body needed the support of the bone body. The bone body became extremely important. Tao marks were branded on the bone body to ensure that the body would not collapse. The trace of martial Tao chaotic origin that was derived from the yin and yang true force was absorbed by the bone body. The Tao marks on the bone body gradually became clear. The Tao marks condensed Tao power and were branded on the bone body, allowing the bone body to achieve eternity. After an unknown amount of time, just when Ji Yufei felt that he was about to go crazy, he suddenly felt his body relax. Then, he felt endless spiritual qi of heaven and earth gathering from all directions and entering his body. It made all the pores on his body relax, and it was extremely comfortable. The Tao power that the mysterious person had injected into his body disappeared. Looking inside, Ji Yufei found that the blurry Tao marks that he had comprehended had been completely consolidated. On the bone body, there was a trace of chaotic power circulating densely. It was covered with blurry marks. This was the embryonic state of the great Tao divine pattern. It was impossible to condense the great Tao divine pattern in one go. As Ji Yufei's understanding of the great Tao became deeper and deeper, the Tao marks would gradually take shape and finally transform into a true flawless Tao pattern. I'm going to cut my way. Ji Yufei felt the Tao power growing in his body, but his cultivation did not seem to have broken through to the almighty realm. Now, he was already standing on the 9th step of the celestial being realm. He was only one step away from ascending to the heavens. At this time, only then did Ji Yufei realize that the mysterious person had disappeared. He did not know when the mountain and river cauldron had flown back and was floating above his head. Boom! At this time, an earth-shattering sound came from the depths of the hidden dragon grounds. Then, a dragon's roar resounded through the 9 heavens. Dragon chi filled the 9 heavens, and the entire hidden dragon grounds shook violently. Shocking cracks appeared on the ground, and the 9 huge mountain ridges looked like they were about to collapse. What happened? Chapter 1255. The mysterious cultivator helped Ji Yufei reach the foundation building realm, allowing Ji Yufei to completely consolidate his realm. Ji Yufei received great benefits. The yin and yang qi in his body evolved and actually gave birth to a sliver of chaotic qi. On his bones, a blurry mark of the great path was imprinted. His entire body was transforming into the legendary chaotic martial body. This was a supreme physique of the human race. According to the legends, the physique of the supreme martial ancestor who created the path of martial arts was the chaotic martial body. Since the martial ancestor, no one had cultivated such a heaven-defying martial physique. After Ji Yufei woke up, he realized that there was a huge change in the depths of the hidden dragon ground. A dragon's roar resounded from the depths of the hidden dragon ground. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The 9 huge mountain ridges were shaking. The entire world seemed like it was about to collapse. The ground was cracking, as if the end of the world had suddenly arrived. It was extremely terrifying. Ji Yufei realized that the hidden dragon ground seemed to have been broken by someone. All the killing formations were on the verge of collapsing. This extremely dangerous place seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Is that him? Ji Yufei thought of the mysterious cultivator who helped him reach the foundation building realm. It seemed like only someone like him could break through the hidden dragon ground. That freak, he's really despicable. Just then, a figure stumbled out from the front. This person's clothes were tattered, and his face was covered in dirt. He looked extremely pathetic. Hey Tian! Ji Yufei was overjoyed when he saw this person. This guy had taken advantage of the mountain and river cauldron suppressing the hidden dragon ground to enter the depths of the hidden dragon ground. He had definitely obtained great benefits. Boss. At this time, He Tian also saw Ji Yufei. Huh? Boss, you. He Tian felt the aura on Ji Yufei's body and couldn't help but be shocked. Ji Yufei's body emitted a formless aura that made his heart tremble. Half-step almighty? He Tian was shocked to discover that Ji Yufei had already taken one step into the realm of mighty beings. Moreover, Ji Yufei seemed to be able to trigger the Tao-severing heavenly tribulation at any time. Cutting the way was like an insurmountable chasm that lay in front of every 9th layer of the celestial being realm. Half-step almighty beings were not almighty beings after all. It was too difficult to take that step. There were many emperors, but not many almighty experts. This was because in the current world, severing the Tao had already become an incomparably difficult thing. For thousands of years, no one in the heaven realm had been able to severing the Tao to become an almighty expert. If Ji Yufei were to slash his Tao, it would definitely be a huge event that would shake the entire heaven realm. What happened inside? Ji Yufei asked. Right now, he had to figure out the situation inside. Inside the 9 heavens hidden dragonland, there must be something that could not be born. 9 dragons returning to 1, hidden dragon ascending to the heavens, incredible. When He Tian heard this, he recalled the scene he had seen in the depths of the hidden dragon grounds, and his expression instantly turned ugly. What? Hearing this, Ji Yufei was also startled. He did not expect that the 9 hidden dragons would actually gather together and give birth to a new life. Hidden dragon ascending to the heavens, could it be that a heavenly dragon was born? If that was really the case, then it was truly heaven-defying. In the current world, there was actually an innate divine beast born from heaven and earth. The entire heaven realm would probably be thrown into chaos. Roar. Another earth-shattering roar came from the depths of the hidden dragonland. Then, the 9 dragon-shaped mountain ridges began to crack. Rocks rolled down from the mountain ridges, and dust filled the air. The cracks on the mountain ridges began to emit traces of dragon chi. These dragon chi gathered towards the depths of the hidden dragonland, and the dragon chi contained in the 9 mountain ridges quickly dissipated. A terrifying draconic might condensed in the depths of the hidden dragonland, as if there really was a terrifying heavenly dragon gathering the endless dragon chi of the earth, condensing the body of a true dragon. Boss, let's go. He Tian did not say much and directly rushed out of the hidden dragonland. At this moment, an extremely powerful aura surged from the depths of the hidden dragonland, and the 9 dragon-shaped mountain ridges finally collapsed. Endless dragon chi was drawn out, and like 9 huge dragons, they rushed into the depths of the hidden dragonland. The 9 dragons gathered together, and a huge dragon silhouette tens of thousands of meters long appeared between heaven and earth. This scene was absolutely shocking. The tens of thousands of meters long dragon silhouette circled high in the sky, and the mighty draconic might of the 9 heavens and 10 earths shook the entire saint burial ground. Spiritual chi gathered from all directions, and an extremely terrifying power condensed. This power was definitely at the level of a saint, and even Ji Yufei felt his soul tremble. Too powerful. Ji Fei did not hesitate and also rushed out of the hidden dragon land. This kind of power was not something he could withstand, and if he did not leave, his life would most likely be in danger. Even though his martial body was marked with vague traces of the Great Path, it could not truly withstand the impact of the power of a saint. Saints had already transcended beyond the three realms, and were no longer within the five elements. They had comprehended their own great path, and were supreme existences between heaven and earth, able to look down on the entire world. Roar! Earth-shattering dragon roars rang out continuously, and the heavens and earth shook. The hidden dragonland completely collapsed, and the earth sank. Even the Saint Burial Ground was affected by the impact. The entrance to the Saint Burial Ground began to collapse. The tens of thousands of meters long dragon silhouette circled in the endless spiritual light, swallowing the spiritual chi of the world. It was not the true body of a true dragon, but only an illusion. However, the fluctuations it emitted were definitely at the Saint Burial Ground. This true dragon was a Saint Burial Ground existence as soon as it was born. This true dragon was truly terrifying. The birth of an innate divine beast caused the weather to change, and the heavens and earth sensed it. Thunder rumbled faintly in the sky, and a terrifying heavenly might that seemed capable of destroying the world descended. Heavenly tribulation. Ji Fei and He Tian only dared to stop after rushing thousands of kilometers away. Ji Fei and He Tian could not be more familiar with the fluctuations of heavenly tribulations. The life that had been born in the depths of the hidden dragonland had actually triggered a heavenly tribulation. This was far too extraordinary. In the current world, it was very rare to trigger a heavenly tribulation. Only those who defied the natural order would trigger a heavenly tribulation when they were making a breakthrough. Ji Fei was one of them. Ji Fei activated his martial path heavenly eye and saw an unbelievable scene. The mysterious person who had helped him reach the Foundation Establishment realm had actually appeared in front of the tens of thousands of meters long dragon silhouette. Compared to the tens of thousands of meters long dragon, the figure of the mysterious expert was as small as an ant. However, although he was as small as an ant, it did not mean that he was as weak as an ant. The tens of thousands of meters long dragon had a dazzling dragon pearl in its mouth. The dragon pearl emitted a dazzling divine light that illuminated the world. The dragon chi in the world originated from this dragon pearl. An uneasy fluctuation was emitted from the dragon pearl that was enveloped by endless dragon chi. Rumble, terrifying bolts of lightning began to appear in the pitch-black sky. Each bolt of lightning tore through the darkness of the world and descended from the endless depths of the sky. The world had sensed it and sent down a lightning tribulation. This was a terrifying tribulation that could not be avoided. The only thing that could be done was to face it head-on. However, no one could remain calm in the face of a heavenly tribulation. Even the carnate divine beast that was about to be born was no exception. A dragon silhouette could be vaguely seen within the dragon pearl in the dragon's mouth. The might of the heavens was so vast that everyone had to retreat. The heavenly tribulation was extremely dangerous for those who were going through it. However, it was also a kind of opportunity. As long as one could survive this tribulation, they would be considered weak and would be recognized by the world. The destructive aura that descended from the sky made Ji Fei restless. He could have triggered his own cutting path heavenly tribulation at any time. Now, under the influence of the aura, Ji Fei felt a vague threat. He knew that if he did not take action, his own heavenly tribulation would be triggered. Buzz! The mountain and river cauldron that floated above Ji Fei's head vibrated. Chaotic primordial chi descended from the mountain and river cauldron like chaotic dragons and enveloped Ji Fei. The chaotic primordial chi was the ancestral chi of the world. It could isolate all auras. The strange fluctuations on Ji Fei's body immediately calmed down. He could no longer feel the threat from the world. The mysterious man did not take action. He only looked at the dragon pearl in the dragon's mouth. At this moment, the entire sky seemed to be pressing down on them. Flashes of lightning kept appearing, and the terrifying lightning was already closing in on the 10,000 zhong tall dragon shadow. Swoosh! A bolt of purple lightning struck down from the sky, tearing through the void. It swept across the body of the 10,000-foot-long dragon, almost splitting it into two. The essence of the 9 heavens hidden dragon is all gathered in the dragon pearl. The hidden dragon rises to the sky. A real dragon is about to be born, He Tian said to himself. Such a thing rarely happened, even in the ancient times. A dragon was about to be born. Moreover, it was born from the world. It was a congenital real dragon that had been created by the world. It had not even been born yet, but it had already attracted the lightning tribulation. Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud noise. Endless lightning appeared in the sky without warning. This part of the world turned into a sea of lightning. Terrifying lightning raged in all directions. Without any suspense, the sea of lightning came crashing down from the sky, enveloping the massive dragon silhouette and the mysterious man. The glaring lightning cut through the void and illuminated the world. A terrifying aura that could destroy the world spread in the sky and on the ground. Wherever the lightning passed, nothing was left. The void had turned into the most primitive state of chaos. Even if a true saint were to come, his expression would change. The lightning tribulation that was descending from the heavens and earth was too frightening and vast. No one dared to get too close. They did not want to be caught in the crossfire. At the same time, huge lightning struck down from the sky from time to time. Such lightning contained a terrifying power of destruction. Even a semisage would be turned into ashes if they were hit by such lightning. At this time, several mysterious figures appeared in the nearby area. These people were watching from afar. They seemed to have some scruples and did not want to come forward. Chapter 1256. Boom. The sound of thunder was deafening as blinding lightning struck down from the depths of the endless sky like mountain ridges. Every single bolt of lightning seemed capable of destroying an entire world. 1*1*, that's a saint-level heavenly tribulation. Jiu Fei and He Tian were both extremely shocked. A lightning tribulation of this level was simply too terrifying. If it had been any other place, the entire area would have been destroyed and the earth would have sunk. However, this was the entrance to the land of buried saints. This part of the world seemed to have been refined by someone and was extremely sturdy. Under the impact of the heavenly tribulation, Tao patterns could be faintly seen in the void. Even so, the land of the hidden dragon of the 9 heavens still collapsed. This heaven-defying pattern of heaven and earth had condensed an endless amount of dragon chi of the earth and ultimately nurtured a life comparable to a saint. A divine beast nurtured by heaven and earth was no small matter. It had even attracted a saint-level heavenly tribulation, shocking the entire area and attracting a few big shots. Jiu Fei and He Tian couldn't deal with such a person. They quietly retreated into the distance, trying their best not to be discovered by these old fogies. However, no matter how careful Jiu Fei and He Tian were, they were still targeted. Bam! Jiu Fei and He Tian were just about to leave when the sky above them suddenly shook violently. A large golden hand, like the hand of heaven, broke through the void and reached out to grab the ancient cauldron floating above Jiu Fei's head. Whoosh! The moment the large golden hand appeared, Jiu Fei grabbed He Tian and used the 8 desolate steps to instantly disappear. The large hand only managed to grab 2 after images. Boom! The place where Jiu Fei and He Tian had been standing was immediately crushed by the large golden hand. The void was instantly shattered into a chaotic mess. Jiu Fei and He Tian appeared 10 miles away. This was the power of the metal element. Jiu Fei sensed a familiar fluctuation. The person who attacked seemed to have a great grudge against him. The person in the dark wanted to kill Jiu Fei in an instant, but he failed to injure Jiu Fei. Even so, Jiu Fei broke out in a cold sweat. A burly figure appeared in the distance, closing in on Jiu Fei and He Tian step by step. It was as if a primordial divine mountain was moving, giving off an incomparably powerful feeling. That person approached. When Jiu Fei saw this person, his pupils involuntarily contracted. This person's golden hair was fluttering in the wind. His eyes were like cold stars, flashing with a cold divine light. He was staring at Jiu Fei. This person was none other than the little Peng Emperor, whom he had once crippled. "So it's you." Ji Yufei looked at the little Peng Emperor expressionlessly and said indifferently. He keenly sensed that the current little Peng Emperor was somewhat different. There seemed to be some changes in his body. The little Peng Emperor actually appeared here. This made Ji Yufei feel extremely surprised. It should be known that the little Peng Emperor was almost killed by him just now. The current little Peng Emperor no longer had the domineering attitude of the past, nor did he have an arrogant expression. He seemed to have matured a lot, causing Ji Yufei to have a whole new level of respect for him. This time, I'll trample you under my feet. The little Peng Emperor's eyes shot out two sharp gazes that were like divine weapons. They swept towards Ji Yufei. If gazes could kill, Ji Yufei would probably have died countless times already. Being defeated by Ji Yufei was a great humiliation for him. He constantly thought about how to avenge his humiliation and trample Ji Yufei, this great enemy, under his feet. Let's go. Ji Yufei did not say anything else. He directly soared into the sky with He Tian and flew above the abyss. At this time, there were many powerful figures rushing over. Ji Yufei did not want others to know that the extreme path sacred weapon, the mountain river cauldron, was in his hands. Where do you think you're going? The little Peng Emperor also soared into the sky at the first instant. A pair of golden wings appeared on his back. He turned into a golden rainbow and used the extreme speed of a sky peng to chase after them. Ji Yufei also grabbed He Tian and used the extreme speed of 8 steps to instantly disappear into the distance. Ji Yufei and the little Peng Emperor, one in front and one behind, quickly disappeared in the dusky world. They were far away from the place where the heavenly tribulation had descended. After Ji Yufei and the others left, a figure appeared at their original location. This person was none other than the primordial era Emperor Xian, who had been hiding nearby. The Sky Peng race. It seems that these two fellows are in big trouble. The primordial era Emperor Xian muttered to himself. The Sky Peng race was incomparably powerful and was a major force in the heaven realm. Especially the old patriarch of the Sky Peng race, he was even more unfathomable. The primordial era Emperor Xian was happy to see Ji Yufei and He Tian become enemies with the Sky Peng race so that he could reap the benefits. It would be best if both Ji Yufei and the Sky Peng race suffered heavy losses. At that moment, the entrance to the land of the buried saints was filled with the sound of crashing waves. It was as if a vast ocean had appeared there, and everything became blurry. One could vaguely see a large river surging forward. An ancient bridge stretched across the river, extending into the unknown. An indescribable scene appeared at the entrance of the land of the buried saints. There seemed to be a figure moving within the land of the buried saints. The Saint Tier heavenly tribulation had finally erupted. Terrifying lightning enveloped a radius of 1,000 miles. Wherever the lightning passed, mountains crumbled. The aura of destruction spread across the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Nothing was left behind. Everything was destroyed. Everyone couldn't help but retreat as far as they could. The sound of a dragon's roar could be heard from within the sea of lightning. Even the triggered heavenly tribulation could not destroy the dragon pearl. A true dragon was born within the dragon pearl, which was equivalent to an impenetrable sacred garment. Without the dragon pearl, even the mystical life forms born from the heavens and earth would have been destroyed by the power of the heavenly tribulation. No one dared to approach because there was Saint Tier lightning wreaking havoc everywhere. As long as one was struck by a bolt of lightning, there would only be one outcome, the destruction of both body and soul. At that moment, Ji Yufei and the others rushed out of the bottomless abyss. Kill! The little Peng Emperor roared angrily, causing the entire void to tremble. He directly punched out at Ji Yufei. Golden light burst out from his fist, and the fist energy was like a monstrous golden wave that rushed towards Ji Yufei. Boom! Ji Yufei punched out with a backhand, colliding fiercely with the little Peng Emperor's fist. A part of the void was directly torn apart by the explosive force. The little Peng Emperor was intercepted, and He Tian took the opportunity to rush into the distance, evading the attack. Chapter 1257. Bang! Ji Yufei stomped the little Peng Emperor down from the sky. He used the 8 desolate steps and 8 kills in 8 steps, displaying his terrifying battle prowess. A part of the world trembled under his feet. This ancient battle skill did not only have 8 steps of extreme speed, but also 8 steps of 8 kills in 8 steps. With one step, the world trembled. Furthermore, the might displayed by each step was not just a simple superposition of strength. If one could take the 8th step, the world would collapse and the stars would fall. It was a supreme killing technique that could destroy the world. Roar! The little Peng Emperor roared. Golden divine light radiated from his body and his golden chi and blood soared into the sky. He was extremely depressed. He was actually stomped down from the sky by his opponent. This made him shocked and angry. It should be known that he was saved by the Old Rock Emperor of the Tian Peng race. After returning to the race, the Old Rock Emperor did not hesitate to use the supreme treasure of the race to raise his cultivation to a level where he could fight against a quasi-emperor. The Tian Peng race was the descendant of the ancient primordial divine beast, the great golden-winged Peng. It was a supreme existence that could fight against the extreme Tao saints. They had an unimaginable heritage. The little Peng Emperor was blessed by the heavens. There was nothing to say about his talent. Within the Tian Peng race, he had the strongest bloodline of the great golden-winged Peng. It was precisely because of this that the Old Rock Emperor of the Tian Peng race would not hesitate to raise a seedling that could transform into the strongest Tian Peng. However, after the little Peng Emperor made his debut, he was defeated by people one after another. First, he was defeated by the Zi Huang, and then he was defeated by Ji Yu Fei. However, although the little Peng Emperor suffered consecutive setbacks, his sharpness was ground away. He became even more terrifying and powerful. To Ji Yu Fei, he was an opponent worthy of respect. How is this possible? The little Peng Emperor's golden hair fluttered wildly. He descended from the sky, and when he landed on the ground, he caused the ground to crack. The crimson ground was sinking. This was the depths of the Scarlet Plains. The red earth was incomparably sturdy. It was not something that the outside world could compare to. However, under the feet of the little Peng Emperor, even the ground that was as sturdy as divine metal would be crushed. Boom! Just as the little Peng Emperor landed on the ground, a wave of destructive energy suddenly erupted and descended from the little Peng Emperor's head. Ji Yu Fei didn't give the little Peng a chance to catch its breath. He immediately took the second step. Wind and thunder rumbled beneath Ji Yu Fei's feet. Powerful beams of light appeared, tearing through the void. This was the second step of the 8 steps 8 kills. When this step was taken, even the heavens and earth trembled. Ji Yu Fei's second step was much stronger than the first. Even the little Peng's expression changed. This pervert, the little Peng Emperor, was both shocked and enraged. Ji Yu Fei's battle prowess had already exceeded his expectations. Although his cultivation and strength had increased, Ji Yu Fei had also improved. Swoosh! A pair of golden wings appeared on the back of the little Peng Emperor. With a flap of his wings, he unleashed the speed of a heavenly peng and rushed out from under Ji Yu Fei's foot. This time, he didn't dare to face Ji Yu Fei head-on. Boom! As Ji Yu Fei's right foot stomped down, the entire void instantly transformed into primordial nothingness. The ground within a radius of 100 miles instantly exploded. Even the primordial chi in this part of the world was emitted by his stomp. The little Peng Emperor was silently shocked. His opponent's strength was comparable to a supreme existence. But this fellow wasn't even a supreme existence, he hadn't severed his Tao yet. Ji Yu Fei didn't use any divine weapons. He wanted to use his own strength to fight against the little Peng Emperor. He didn't want to rely too much on divine weapons. Unless it was a life and death situation, Ji Yu Fei wouldn't use his divine weapons. And at this moment, above the bottomless abyss, dark clouds covered the entire sky. Above the boundless firmament, a destructive aura that caused all life in the world to tremble came crashing down. 9 dragons gathered and hidden dragons soared into the sky. The 9 dragon veins contained endless draconic chi, giving birth to a divine beast comparable to a saint. The world sensed it and sent down a lightning tribulation. Furthermore, this was no ordinary tribulation lightning. Within the pitch-black tribulation clouds, there were actually 9 colored tribulation lightning bolts rumbling. Each bolt of lightning was like an incomparably huge mountain ridges, tearing the heavens and splitting the earth apart. It was extremely terrifying. The blood mist that shrouded the entire Scarlet Plains was dispersed by the tribulation lightning. Even the Central Plains and the Southern Domain could feel the terrifying fluctuations produced by the lightning tribulation. Originally, the appearance of the land of Saint Burial had caused a huge commotion in the Southern Domain. It was unknown how many old monsters had jumped out and entered the Southern Domain. As soon as the heavenly tribulation appeared, these old monsters already sensed it. After that, many of them entered the Scarlet Plains, but no one came out from the Great Tomb. The aura of the Supreme Path there was vast and mighty. Apart from a few people with divine weapons, no one else could intervene, not even those with divine weapons. In front of a divine weapons were like scrap metal. They couldn't even withstand a single blow. The aura of the Thai sovereign seal from the old turtle was vast in the 9 heavens and 10 earths, so the divine might it emitted was the most powerful. Next was the divine might displayed by little monk Fan Xiu's divine weapon. If it were to strike the heavenly realm, it would be enough to destroy an entire region. Even though Jiu Fei was inside the Scarlet Plains, he could still sense the divine might coming from outside. However, the divine might that entered the Scarlet Plains had already been weakened to a bearable level by the power of the Scarlet Plains. Even so, Jiu Fei still felt his soul tremble. Erebus and the golden-winged little Peng also felt this way. Clang! After dodging Jiu Fei's second step, the little Peng's body suddenly emitted the sound of metal clanging. An extremely sharp wave rushed out from his body. Heaven battling Slayer art, golden Dao sword. The golden hair on the little Peng's head danced wildly. The clanging sound from his body penetrated the void and spread far and wide. It was shocking. Buzz. The golden divine light on the little Peng's body shone brightly. Golden sword shadows appeared in the endless golden light and floated around him. Sword chi rushed out. Each of the blurry sword shadows was imprinted with a vague Dao pattern. This was the little Peng's own Dao. Just like Jiu Fei, the little Peng had also comprehended a vague Dao and touched the threshold of cutting the Dao. Jiu Fei and the little Peng were in the same realm. They had both comprehended a vague Dao. As long as they crossed this threshold, they could cut the Dao and become almighty. This was a battle between two powerhouses who were known to be invincible in the same realm. The result would be clear in this battle. Of course, Yuan Hong from the Golden Spirit Ape lineage had gone into seclusion. Otherwise, it was still unknown who would be invincible in the same realm. Any power that had produced an extreme Dao powerhouse was not simple. Although the extreme Dao powerhouses had disappeared, the extreme Dao's inheritance had been passed down. It was even possible that the extreme Dao sacred weapon had been passed down. The Tianpeng clan and the Golden Spirit Ape clan were both ancient clans of the Heaven realm that had extreme Dao sacred weapons. Buzz. The blurry golden sword of the Wei hummed. The little Peng Emperor had made his move. Countless golden sword shadows flew around him, releasing a terrifying wave of sword chi that caused the heavens and the earth to lose their color. The little Peng Emperor slashed towards Jiu Fei. This was a Dao sword condensed with a trace of Dao power. Even a half-step saint would pale in the face of such an attack, let alone an almighty Dao severing cultivator. Almighty Dao severing cultivators had begun to comprehend their own Dao marks. They could use a trace of the great Dao to strengthen themselves. Their offensive power was naturally not something a Deva sovereign could compare with. Watch me shatter your Dao sword. Jiu Fei was still as strong as ever. Facing the attacks of the millions of golden Dao swords, he was not afraid at all. He shook his body, and the sound of wind and thunder came from within. If he looked inside himself at this time, he would find that the blurry Dao marks that had been branded on his body were emitting a faint divine light. A trace of chaotic chi was curling around his body. Blurry Dao marks appeared on Jiu Fei's skin, making him look a little strange. However, when the little Peng saw this scene, he was extremely shocked. Imprinting the mark of the Dao onto his body was just too crazy. Could it be that this guy actually wanted to refine his body into a saint weapon? The little Peng was shocked. At this time, Jiu Fei's body was covered in blurry Dao marks. His entire person seemed to have become one with the great Dao. He directly rushed forward and crashed into the millions of golden Dao swords that were slashing towards him. Boom! Ji Fei punched out and over 100 golden Dao swords immediately shattered under his fist. Blurry Dao marks appeared on his fist, and a trace of Dao power curled around it. Whoosh! He swept out with his foot, and over 100 golden Dao swords disappeared into the void. His punches and kicks were all extremely powerful. Ji Fei's long hair danced wildly. He was extremely ferocious. Even He Tian, who was watching from afar, was dumbfounded. The martial body in the legends was too monstrous. The path of cultivation that the peerless martial ancestor had created was to dig out all the potential of the human race. The potential of the human race was limitless. The bigger the heart, the stronger the body. The physique of the peerless martial ancestor could be said to be the strongest in the world. Even the bodies of the innate gods born from chaos were not as strong as the peerless martial ancestors. And now, Ji Fei's body was definitely the strongest in the same realm. Although the little Peng had the bloodline of the celestial rock ancestor and his body was extremely strong, it was still inferior to Ji Fei's. And now, Ji Fei's body was definitely the strongest in the same realm. Although the little Peng had the bloodline of the celestial rock ancestor and his body was extremely strong, it was still inferior to Ji Fei's. He was like an indestructible divine dragon that was tumbling in a golden ocean. The millions of golden Dao swords could not stop his steps. He broke through the layers of sword shadows. The golden Dao swords were simply a joke in front of his fist. He resolutely charged towards the golden figure in the depths of the golden sword shadows. His battle intent was unparalleled and shook the heavens and earth. Chapter 1258. Ji Fei was extremely domineering. He stimulated the vague marks of the Dao on his bones and imprinted them on his body, triggering a trace of the power of the great Dao. Yi Su, 1. His entire person was like a peerless divine weapon. With his bare hands and fists, he shattered the golden Dao sword. Specks of golden light scattered in all directions, piercing through the void and creating thousands of holes. The heavenly battling slay art of the rock race was no small matter. It was a supreme killing art created by the golden rock ancestor. In the hands of the little rock emperor, its power was even more earth-shattering. But unfortunately, the little rock emperor had encountered Ji Fei, who had a physique that surpassed the sovereign martial body. He was powerful to an abnormal level. With a punch and a stomp, he could shatter the golden swords. Each golden sword contained a trace of Dao power. Although it was extremely weak, it was still Dao power. However, the Dao power contained in the golden swords was directly shattered by Ji Fei. Tens of thousands of golden swords could not stop Ji Fei. He directly broke through the layers of sword shadows and attacked the figure behind the golden swords that was blooming with endless golden light. Buzz! Ji Fei arrived in front of the golden-winged little Peng Emperor and threw a punch forward. The entire void let out a rumble along with his punch. Then, the golden swords that danced around the little rock emperor were immediately shattered by Ji Fei's punch. The ferocious fist energy could crush the world and the void. Swish! The little rock emperor retreated with lightning speed. The wings on his back flapped, and his speed was so fast that only a golden light could be seen rushing out. He was extremely fast. The rock's extreme speed is indeed worthy of its reputation. In the distance, He Tian couldn't help but exclaim when he saw this scene. This was the talent of the rock race. In ancient times, the speed of the rock race was also very famous. Perhaps only the martial ancestors' desolate steps could catch up to the rock flying at full speed. The others, even the extreme path cultivators, were far inferior. Swoosh! Ji Fei's figure blurred for a moment before disappearing from where he stood. In the next instant, he appeared in front of the little Peng Emperor and punched out again. Although Ji Fei's fist was just a simple punch, the little Peng Emperor felt that it was impossible to dodge the mighty martial path true force. Roar! The little Peng Emperor roared furiously, and the shadow of a large golden bird immediately appeared on his body. An extremely powerful force surged from his body. He didn't retreat anymore, because he knew that even if he retreated, the other party would still follow him like a shadow. The other party had already locked onto his aura. Boom! Two resplendent golden fists instantly collided. Ji Yufei struck out with the metal element fist. The little Peng Emperor cultivated the metal element divine art of the 5 elements. The two extremely powerful fists were like two pieces of peerless divine metal colliding. The void was silently annihilated from the point of impact of the two fists. Ji Yufei only felt a strong force passing through his fist. He couldn't help but retreat 5 steps before he could stop. The little Peng Emperor, on the other hand, was sent flying dozens of feet away by Ji Yufei's punch. Golden blood flowed from his golden fist. The little Peng Emperor was extremely shocked. He was injured. The other party's fist was like a semi-sage weapon. It was too hard. It was really shocking. The power of the metal element surged in the little Peng Emperor's body. His injured right hand instantly healed as if it had never been injured. He used the heritage of his clan to temper the celestial rock real body. His physical body was so strong that it should be invincible among those in the same realm. But now, it seemed like a huge joke. The little Peng Emperor couldn't help but feel depressed. The other party was too powerful. Could a human really have such a physique? Even an innate divine beast might not be able to match such a strong physical body. Again, Ji Yufei shouted and took a step forward. The ground shrank to an inch. He appeared in front of the little Peng Emperor in an instant and punched again. There was no way to dodge. Ji Yufei's fist covered the whole world. No matter where the little Peng Emperor tried to hide, Ji Yufei's fist would hit him. Such a fist technique could be said to be extremely overbearing. It was forcing the opponent to fight him head-on. The human race's martial body was so strong that it was abnormal. No one was willing to provoke a cultivator who had achieved success in cultivation. Bang! The little Peng Emperor couldn't dodge under the cover of Ji Yufei's fist. He directly took another punch from Ji Yufei. The little Peng Emperor was forced back again. Just as the little Peng Emperor's figure came to a stop, Ji Yufei charged over again. With another simple and direct punch, the little Peng Emperor was sent flying again. Ji Yufei punched out 9 times in a row. Every punch forced the little Peng Emperor back. The little Peng Emperor was shocked and angry. Although his opponent's battle technique was simple, it was the most effective. Under the bombardment of Ji Yufei's overbearing and ferocious fist force, the little Peng Emperor's body suffered a great impact. A trace of blood seeped out from the corner of the little Peng Emperor's mouth. This can't go on. The little Peng Emperor's mind raced. If this continued, he would probably be tortured to death by Ji Yufei. This was very disadvantageous to him. Roar! Sky Peng True Body. The golden-winged little Peng Emperor roared in anger. Energy surged from his body, and golden light radiated from his body, illuminating the dusky sky and dispersing the endless blood mist. A large golden bird appeared from the little Peng Emperor's body. The bird was faint and illusory. A terrifying power spread out in all directions. The little Peng Emperor fully activated the power of his bloodline, revealing the Sky Peng True Body. Rumble! When the Sky Peng True Body appeared, the entire world shook. The little Peng Emperor's body released a trace of the aura of a powerful cultivator. The power of the Tao and the power of the bloodline gathered in the little Peng Emperor's body, forming an unimaginable power. At this moment, the little Peng Emperor was like the ancestor of his race. It made people feel an urge to kneel and worship him. Bam! Ji Yufei didn't stop. His right fist smashed into the golden bird that had appeared from the little Peng Emperor's body. This time, the little Peng Emperor didn't retreat. Ji Yufei was taken aback. His punch felt as if it had struck an immortal divine metal, and the recoil shook his arm to the point that it almost broke. The little Peng Emperor's body seemed to have become 10 times stronger. It could even block Ji Yufei's punch. It could withstand Ji Yufei's attack. This made Ji Yufei feel somewhat incredulous. Chapter 1259. The little Peng Emperor fully activated the bloodline power in his body and revealed the Sky Peng True Body. The image of a giant golden bird appeared on his body. The giant golden bird emitted a powerful aura that made even Ji Yufei's heart palpitate. It was like a primordial god had awakened on the little Peng Emperor's body. This was the bloodline unique to the Sky Peng race. It belonged to the Golden Peng Emperor, an extreme sacred beast. The Golden Peng Emperor was a carnate sacred beast that could stand shoulder to shoulder with an extreme sacred beast. Although the golden-winged Great Peng bird's bloodline had been passed down for many generations, the Little Peng Emperor's body showed signs of atavism. Such a phenomenon had only occurred once or twice in the entire Tian Peng clan over the past tens of millions of years. It was far too rare. Furthermore, the two Tian Peng clansmen that had shown signs of atavism were all extremely powerful. They were people that had left their names in the history of cultivation. Not only did the Little Peng Emperor's ancestral bloodline not thin, but it was also much purer than other clansmen of the same generation. Rumble, the giant golden bird, was extremely powerful. It seemed like the world couldn't contain it. The entire world shook as the Little Peng Emperor's aura rose to its peak. Bloodline power. In the distance, Erebus couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat for Ji Yufei when he saw this scene. It must be known that the Tian Peng clan's bloodline wasn't simple. It inherited the power of the primordial golden-winged Great Peng. The power of the Golden Peng Emperor was drawn out by the Little Peng Emperor. At this moment, the Little Peng Emperor was like an ancient Sky Peng that had been resurrected. He was extremely powerful. The image of the giant golden bird attached itself to the Little Peng Emperor's body. The pure power of the bloodline interweaved, making the Little Peng Emperor look like he was wearing a golden battle suit. Kill! Ji Yufei yelled out as he circulated the martial force in his body with all his might. Blurry Dao marks appeared on his fist. Without any fancy moves, he threw out another punch. Rumble, the water blue fist force was like a surging river, rushing towards the Little Peng Emperor. It was as if a river had appeared between heaven and earth, and the power of the water element was vast and mighty. Ji Yufei struck out with the water element fist of the five-element fist. The water elemental fist of the five elemental fists was a combination of hardness and softness. It walked the path of using softness to overcome hardness. It just so happened to be able to restrain the Little Peng Emperor's tyrannical and violent metal elemental power. A cold smile appeared on the Little Peng Emperor's face. After his body had been tempered by the divine item of his clan, the power of his bloodline had nearly doubled. His bloodline power was twice as strong as before. This was the reason why the Little Peng Emperor dared to challenge Ji Yufei. If he couldn't defeat Ji Yufei with this, then he would never be able to defeat Ji Yufei. Being defeated by Ji Yufei was a shadow in the Little Peng's heart. If he didn't defeat Ji Yufei, it would affect his cultivation and prevent him from becoming a paragon. Swish! The Little Peng Emperor's right hand was like a golden holy saber as it slashed forward. A dazzling golden saber light rushed out from his hand and split the water elemental power that Ji Yufei struck out in half. The golden saber light was like a hot knife cutting through butter. After breaking through Ji Yufei's fist force, its momentum didn't decrease at all. It tore through the void and fell towards Ji Yufei's head. The water elemental fist that Ji Yufei struck out couldn't overcome hardness with softness. It couldn't restrain the Little Peng Emperor's saber light. Instead, it was restrained by the Little Peng Emperor's saber light. The power of the five elements reinforced and restrained each other. There wasn't an absolute power that could restrain the other four elements. As long as the power was strong enough, it could restrain everything. Hey! Ji Yufei's heart shuddered. His opponent was too strong. The power of his bloodline had increased the Little Peng Emperor's strength by countless times. His physical body was almost indestructible. Bang! Ji Yufei didn't retreat. Instead, he punched upwards. Endless golden light bloomed from his fist. The punch triggered the power of the metal elemental power between heaven and earth. It was as if a golden sun had appeared between heaven and earth. The pressure almost caused the void to collapse. It was terrifying to the extreme. Clang! A deafening roar resounded through the 9 heavens in an instant. The terrifying sound waves caused transparent ripples to appear in the void, causing the void to ripple. Hei Tian, who was watching the battle from afar, felt his vision go dark. He couldn't hear anything anymore. A trace of blood seeped out from his ears. Mai Tian retreated immediately. This sound wave was too terrifying. If it was an ordinary sovereign realm cultivator, the sound wave would have pierced through their Niwen palace and shattered their divine soul, causing them to breathe their last. Ji Yufei's fist collided with the golden blade light of the little Peng Emperor. The golden blade light was shattered by Ji Yufei's punch. The shattered golden blade light turned into specks of golden light. Like golden meteors, they shot out in all directions, piercing through the void. Ji Yufei met the attack head-on. He used the strongest metal elemental fist to shatter the golden blade light of the little Peng Emperor. However, he was also hit hard and fell from the sky. Good. Ji Yufei's fighting spirit was strong. If he defeated the little Peng Emperor too easily, it would be very boring. A battle of equal strength was what he wanted. He wanted to prove his strength. The little Peng Emperor also stood on the 9th step of the Deva sovereign realm. Both of their combat power could be said to be heaven-defying. They weren't powerful, but they could fight them. It was rare for such a person to appear in 1,000 years. However, in this era, there were many heaven-defying people. The legendary Great Era was about to come. Bam! Ji Yufei's feet hit the ground, and the ground beneath his feet exploded. He shot up into the sky toward the little Peng Emperor. At this moment, a ray of green divine light suddenly shot down from the sky. The speed of the divine light was unbelievable as it directly pierced through Ji Yufei. What? Ji Yufei couldn't help but be shocked. He was focused on fighting the little Peng Emperor, and he didn't expect someone to suddenly attack him. All of this happened too suddenly. The cyan divine light flashed through the void and hit Ji Yufei, knocking him thousands of meters away. He felt a sharp pain in his back, as if something had pierced into his body. Who's doing this? Chapter 1260. The azure light pierced through space. It had only just appeared on the horizon when it arrived behind Ji Yufei, knocking Ji Yufei 1,000 meters away. Roar! Ji Yufei roared at the sky. His blood energy surged, and dragon-like blood energy surged out of the top of his head. His hair fluttered in the wind, and there was an azure arrow sticking out of his back. This wasn't a divine arrow refined from essence gold, but a wooden arrow. Divine light revolved around it, and Dao runes could be faintly seen on it. It contained a terrifying power. How is this possible? Azure light flickered as a figure appeared in the sky. It was a young cultivator with a divine bow. He was covered in demonic chi. He was from the demon race. You're still alive after being struck by my arrow? The young cultivator stared at Ji Yufei in disbelief. This human race's martial body was truly terrifying. He was actually able to endure the power of this arrow. It had to be known that this wasn't an ordinary arrow. This kind of arrow contained Dao energy. Even a half-step sage would have their body blown apart and their Yuan spirit destroyed. Who are you? Can't you see I'm fighting with Ji Yufei? The little Peng furiously glared at the newcomer. This person seemed to have heavily injured Ji Yufei, but he didn't appreciate it. Instead, he was irritated. Others might be afraid of you, but I, Mu Qingtian, am not. The young cultivator glared at the little Peng as if he didn't care about him at all. Mu Qingtian? You're Mu Qingtian? The little Peng's expression changed when he heard that. This fellow was actually the legendary son of the Heaven Demon. He was someone on the same level as the Grand Emperor's son. In the Primeval era, the Sky Demon was the only existence among the demon race that could compete with the Grand Emperor. His children possessed the purest bloodline power. Once they were born, they already possessed talent that others could not hope to match. You deserve to die. Ji Yufei was enraged, the true power in his entire body surged violently, his body releasing a muffled thunder-like sound. The wooden arrow in his back was vibrating, and was actually forced out by him. Is that the legendary Sky Demon bow? The little Peng Emperor stared at the simple wooden bow in Mu Qingtian's hands with a trace of fear in his eyes. It had to be known that even in ancient times, not many people dared to receive an arrow from the Sky Demon Palace refined by a supreme Sky Demon. It can't be the Sky Demon bow. If it was the Sky Demon bow, Ji Yufei would have been killed long ago. In the distance, He Tian was shocked to the extreme when he saw this scene. The descendant of the Sky Demon had appeared. The bloodline of the Sky Demon had not been severed. The son of the Sky Demon had actually appeared in this world. This must have been a contingency plan that the legendary Sky Demon had laid down in the ancient times, allowing his son to escape the terrifying calamity of the ancient times. PFFF. The Greenwood divine arrow jumped out from Jiu Fei's back, but there was no scene of blood splattering everywhere. Not even the tip of the arrow was stained with any blood. Jiu Fei reached out and grabbed the Greenwood divine arrow that had jumped out from his back. He then grabbed the two ends of the arrow and circulated his divine power, trying to break the arrow. This is a divine arrow refined from a spirit root in heaven and earth. How can it be broken by you? Mu Qingtian laughed coldly. The wooden bow in his hand might not be the legendary Sky Demon bow, but it was still a saint artifact. This was a saint bow refined from a spirit root in heaven and earth. Even the arrow that was shot out was refined from a branch of that spirit root. The Sky Demon's son, Mu Qingtian, seemed to have some changes in his body. His strength was like the difference between clouds and mud compared to the Tai Huang's son, Old Turtle. Jiu Fei did not believe it. His body was filled with a vast amount of true power, and blurry Tao marks appeared on his body. Tao presence was circulating on his body, and a trace of Tao energy was being activated. Roar! Jiu Fei roared, and his aura instantly rose to the limit. Tao patterns appeared on his hands, and the terrifying power caused the Greenwood divine arrow to gradually bend. What, in the distant sky, Mu Qingtian, the son of the heavenly demon, could not help but be dumbfounded when he saw this scene. This was a divine arrow. If not for the problems in his body due to his cultivation, this arrow alone could have taken Jiu Fei's life. Endless martial true power crazily gathered towards Jiu Fei's hands. On the Greenwood divine arrow in his hands, Tao patterns appeared. The ancient divine arrow was releasing dazzling divine light, resisting Jiu Fei's power. Catcher. Cracks began to appear on the Greenwood divine arrow. This caused the Sky Demon's son, Mu Qingtian's expression to change. He quickly reached out and pulled out a wooden arrow from his quiver. Then, he knocked the arrow and aimed at Jiu Fei. Swish! Without any hesitation, Mu Qingtian shot out a second Greenwood divine arrow. As soon as it left the bowstring, it transformed into a ray of green light that shot towards Jiu Fei's head. Boom! A golden fist came from the side without any warning and bombarded the arrow light fiercely. The light of the arrow light dimmed and was blown away by the fist force. You! Mu Qingtian was both startled and infuriated. He had never expected this person to attack. This was the Little Peng Emperor from the Sky Peng race. The Greenwood divine arrow, which had lost its aim after being punched by the Little Peng Emperor, made a turn in the air and flew back to Mu Qingtian. His mine. Don't meddle in other people's business. Although the Little Peng Emperor knew his opponent's identity, he was still incomparably domineering. It had to be known that his own race had once given birth to a supreme existence that could compete with an extreme Tao saint. If we work together, we can kill him. Mu Qingtian didn't seem to want to fight with the Little Peng Emperor. Right now, he wanted to kill this so-called human martial body to prove that he was unrivaled in the same realm. I won't work together with a scoundrel. The Little Peng Emperor looked down on Mu Qingtian's actions. This sneak attack made him look down on this so-called Sky Demon's son. What did you say? The Sky Demon's son frowned. He was the son of a Sky Demon, and he had an incomparable status in the Sky Demon race. Now he was being mocked. That made him angry. What, are you deaf? I said you're a scoundrel, said the Little Peng Emperor coldly. You're courting death. Chapter 1261. Bang! Just as Mu Qingtian and the Little Peng were facing each other, a muffled sound rang out. A ball of azure light illuminated the scarlet world, and a terrifying energy fluctuation erupted. What? How is this possible? Mu Qingtian and Little Peng looked in the direction of the voice and were immediately stunned by the scene in front of them. The Greenwood divine arrow had actually been broken by Jiu Fei. That's a saint arrow. How could it be broken by a sovereign? Mu Qingtian was very clear what kind of arrow he had shot. The Greenwood divine arrow from the Greenwood divine bow could be said to be invincible. In ancient times, not many people could receive such an arrow. The human race's martial body is truly terrifying. The little Peng was also incomparably shocked. Mu Qingtian was the legendary heavenly demon's son. Although his divine bow wasn't the extreme Dao heavenly demon bow, it was still a saint item. Mu Qingtian and the little Peng couldn't believe their eyes that Ji Yufei had broken a saint arrow. That ball of azure light that had exploded from Ji Yufei's hand had some divine runes dissipating. Those were the Dao runes imprinted on the arrow. Roar! Ji Yufei raised his head and roared. The entire world shook from his roar. The wound on his back was quickly healing, and the damage from the greenwood divine arrow was quickly disappearing. Preposterous! Mu Qingtian couldn't help being startled. His greenwood divine bow only had 3 arrows. Now that one had been destroyed by Ji Yufei, he felt incomparable heartache. You want to take my life with just a broken weapon? You're far from it. Ji Yufei's words were extremely cold. His cold gaze swept towards Mu Qingtian like a sharp blade. He wanted to see through the person who had ambushed him. I only want a fair fight. The little Peng Emperor's battle intent surged. He looked at Mu Qingtian, then at Ji Yufei, as he said these words. There's no such thing as fairness in this world. It's not too late. Let's join forces and kill this human martial body. Otherwise, this person will become a great calamity for us. Mu Qingtian wanted the little Peng Emperor to attack together and join hands with you? The little Peng glanced at Mu Qingtian in disdain, then shook his head. He's mine. If you interfere again, I'll kill you as well. You and I are both demons. Mu Qingtian wanted to persuade him again. Shut up. Don't compare me to you. The little Peng didn't give Mu Qingtian any face at all. So what if Mu Qingtian was the son of a heavenly demon? This wasn't the primordial era anymore. A heavenly demon's influence wouldn't be of much use here. Mu Qingtian was infuriated. This little Peng Emperor didn't care about the big picture at all. If he was allowed to mature, he would be a threat to the entire demon race. Little Peng Emperor, let's put our battle aside for now. I want to see just what kind of ability this so-called heavenly demon's son has. Ji Yufei had heard the little Peng Emperor's conversation with the heavenly demon's son. He knew the origins of this person who had attacked him. He had killed quite a few experts of the heavenly demon bloodline. It seemed this heavenly demon's son wanted to settle the debt with him. But wasn't this heavenly demon's methods a bit too despicable? The little Peng Emperor didn't say anything and retreated. HMPH, a human martial body. Although you're powerful, it's your misfortune to face me. Mu Qingtian's killing intent surged, and a powerful aura spread from his body. This aura caused Ji Yufei's expression to become grave. It was like a terrifying desolate beast had awakened within Mu Qingtian's body. There seems to be something wrong with this so-called heavenly demon's body. In the sky, He Tian was calmly watching this scene. The heavenly demon was one of the giants of the Great Desolate Era. How could his son be so weak? It had to be known that the Grand Sovereign had 9 sons. Each one of them was a demon saint, and each one of them could dominate the Great Desolate Era. But although there was something wrong with Mu Qingtian's body, the power of his bloodline was still incomparably powerful. This was the power he had inherited from the supreme heavenly demon. Legend had it that the supreme heavenly demon's body was a spiritual root of heaven and earth born from the primal chaos. It had evolved from the first strand of wood elemental energy. The heavenly demon was one of the 5-element demonic ancestors. He and the Grand Sovereign were the 2 great demonic ancestors of the Great Desolate Era. The other 3 great demonic ancestors had been born a long time ago. In the era of the heavenly demon and the Grand Sovereign, the 3 great demonic ancestors had disappeared for countless years. Some people said that the 3 great demonic ancestors had already fallen, but no one had found their tombs. Kill. Ji Yufei didn't waste any time. He shot into the sky and charged at the heavenly demon's son, Mu Qingtian. His monstrous blood energy swept through the sky and earth. It was as if the primordial war god had descended. Even the heavenly demon's son's expression changed when he saw the powerful blood energy coming from Ji Yufei's body. Mu Qingtian didn't dare to be careless. He narked an arrow and drew the greenwood divine bow in his hand. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth frantically gathered towards the greenwood divine bow. The simple and unadorned greenwood divine arrow blossomed with boundless divine light. The hidden Tao patterns on the body of the greenwood divine arrow all emerged. These were profound ancient Tao patterns. The entire greenwood divine arrow seemed to transform into an eternal killing light. Tao rhymes swirled around it. Before it was shot, the greenwood divine arrow had already shot out hundreds of meters and pierced through the void. Bang! Ji Yufei directly punched out. The violent fist force pressed forward like a primordial divine mountain. The void in front of his fist collapsed and shattered, turning into chaos. The destructive power shrouded Mu Qingtian, wanting to devour him. Swish! At this moment, Mu Qingtian shot out an earth-shattering arrow. The greenwood divine bow shot out a green divine light of extermination. It shot up tens of thousands of meters and broke through Ji Yufei's fist force, piercing towards Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei was taken aback. He saw that there were Tao patterns lingering on the green divine light of annihilation. The Tao patterns imprinted on the holy arrow seemed to have been activated. Even a sage would be shocked by such an arrow. Roar! Ji Yufei's long hair fluttered in the wind. His fist force was unstoppable. He didn't know how to retreat. His fist met the green divine light of extermination. On his fist, the five elemental true force was vast and intertwined. It was as if there were five small worlds revolving, gathering into a terrifying power that seemed to be able to pierce through heaven and earth. With such power, even if his fist landed on a huge mountain, it would still explode. Boom! Ji Yufei's fist collided with the green divine light of extermination. The boundless divine light of extermination crumbled continuously. Ji Yufei's footsteps were firm as he pressed forward. It was only when Ji Yufei's fist collided with the greenwood divine arrow in the green divine light that Ji Yufei was stopped. He felt an unstoppable force coming from his fist, causing his body to shake violently. All the true force in his body was almost scattered. Damn it! A thunderous sound came from Ji Yufei's body. All the potential in his body was being drawn out, and then it was gathering crazily into his fist. Bang! Ji Yufei's fist shook violently, and the Saint Arrow was immediately blown away. The light dimmed, and Ji Yufei was also blown away. His entire arm had cracks on it, and blood was seeping out from the crack. He was blown tens of miles away, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Looking inside, he couldn't help but be shocked. The bones of his entire right arm actually had cracks that looked like a spider web. The indistinct Tao marks on the bones were flickering and stabilizing the entire arm. Otherwise, Ji Yufei's entire arm might have exploded. Saint weapon, Ji Yufei couldn't help but be shocked. It seemed like his body was still a little lacking. Under the clash with the Saint weapon, he was actually heavily injured, and his bones were all crack. It seemed like only by truly severing the Tao and condensing true Tao marks could his martial body contend against the Saint weapon. Ji Yufei knew that he was lacking. He reached out to wipe away the blood at the corner of his mouth. He wasn't discouraged, but his battle intent surged, and his killing intent surged. Fighting a Saint weapon barehanded? The battle strength that Ji Yufei had displayed truly shocked Mu Qingtian. Ji Yufei was just a sovereign. Even a grand completion sovereign wouldn't be able to fight a Saint weapon head-on and come out unscathed. Mu Qingtian knew that he had truly underestimated this human's martial body. He had underestimated his opponent's battle strength. It had to be known that the arrow he had shot was different from the one he had used to sneak attack. This arrow had been shot with all his strength. Almost all the Tao patterns on the Saint arrow had been activated, and it had been condensed with Tao energy. Not to mention a grand completion sovereign, even a half-saint would be killed by this arrow. However, what Mu Qingtian didn't know was that Ji Yufei had already comprehended his own Tao. Although it was only a vague Tao and hadn't truly severed the Tao, Ji Yufei's physical body had already transformed to an unbelievable level of strength. Moreover, the vague Tao marks that Ji Yufei had comprehended were all branded on his bones and physical body. This kind of body-refining method could only be mastered by cultivators on the martial path. Other cultivators would definitely not brand priceless Tao patterns on their own bodies. They would only brand Tao patterns on their primordial spirits, allowing their primordial spirits to achieve eternity. The primordial spirit and the Tao coexisted and achieved eternity. As long as the primordial spirit was not destroyed, one could live forever. This was the cultivation method of other Tao Severas. However, the path of the martial path was different. A grand completion sovereign would brand his own Tao onto his physical body, allowing his physical body to display eternity. This was how the indestructible body of a grand completion sovereign was cultivated. The greenwood divine arrow that had been sent flying by Ji Yufei didn't fly back to Mu Qingtian. Instead, it made a turn in the void and shot towards Ji Yufei again. Chapter 1262. The greenwood divine bow was a divine weapon refined by a demonic saint of the demon race. If a demonic saint drew it, it could even shoot down the moon in the sky. Although Mu Qingtian was the son of the sky demon and had the invincible bloodline of the sky demon, there was something wrong with his body. His cultivation had long since fallen from the saint realm. They were both the son of a peerless demonic saint, but the current Mu Qingtian couldn't compare to the old turtle. The old turtle had grasped the Grand Imperial Seal and could step into the half-step demonic saint realm at any time. As for Mu Qingtian, he was between the Tao Severing realm and the Emperor realm. Furthermore, his cultivation didn't seem to have truly stabilized. He had most likely only recently broken through. Mu Qingtian was the same as Ji Yufei and the little Peng. They were all on the verge of Tao severing, but hadn't been able to do so. Perhaps one of them would do so in the next moment. But even if they hadn't truly Tao severing, these three experts were absolutely invincible in the same realm. They could defy the heavens and fight almighties. Each one of them had the ability to be invincible in the same realm. Swoosh! The green arrow pierced through the void, shooting toward Ji Yufei from the distance. An arrow shot from the greenwood divine bow wouldn't stop until it saw blood. Ji Yufei was shocked to discover that the Tao runes on the azure wood divine arrow were devouring the spiritual energy in the surroundings. The arrow's glow was much stronger than before. Oh! This divine arrow was extraordinary. It seemed to be even more terrifying than the divine arrow he had just snapped. It displayed a divine might that made one's heart palpitate. The divine arrow that he had broken just now was already incomplete. A portion of the Tao marks imprinted on it had already been destroyed. The Tao marks imprinted on this divine arrow seemed to be complete. Swoosh! Ji Yufei used the 8 desolate steps to soar into the sky. He wanted to dodge the green arrow, but the arrow seemed to have a mind of its own. It could change directions in the air and continue shooting toward him. Boss, be careful. This is an greenwood divine arrow refined by an ancient demonic saint. It won't stop until it sees blood. Hei Tian couldn't help but warn Ji Yufei. Won't stop until blood is spilled. Ji Yufei moved quickly in the air, displaying his 8 steps. However, the green arrow radiance emitted a dazzling divine light and chased after him like a shadow. Preposterous. Ji Yufei couldn't get rid of this arrow light even with his extreme 8 steps. This made him secretly shocked. This son of the sky demon was quite capable to be able to activate such a saint weapon. Mph, this greenwood divine arrow won't stop until it sees blood. You're dead, said Mu Qingtian coldly. He knew that this greenwood divine arrow was a complete saint arrow. It wasn't like the damaged arrow from before. The holy arrow frantically devoured the spiritual energy from all directions, causing the aura coming from the arrow to become even more powerful. A trace of saintly might filled the air, causing Ji Yufei to involuntarily feel somewhat nervous. Is that so? In that case, I'll let this divine arrow taste blood. A cold smile appeared on Ji Yufei's face. He directly used the 8 desolate steps to charge at Mu Qingtian. He crossed 100 miles with a single step, reaching Mu Qingtian in an instant. What? Mu Qingtian was startled. Behind Ji Yufei was a ray of divine light that was 30,000 meters long. At this time, the power condensed by the Saint Arrow caused the entire world to tremble. Ji Yufei had actually guided this earth-shattering arrow towards him. This caused Mu Qingtian, the son of the sky demon, to break out in a cold sweat. Ji Yufei paused in front of Mu Qingtian and smiled at him. Then he pushed his speed to the limit and soared into the sky. At this moment, the sky-shattering arrow beam shot towards Jiu Fei's back. Jiu Fei dodged it, but the heavenly demon's son, Mu Qingtian, bore the brunt of the attack. Damn it! Mu Qingtian's shock was no small matter. He had shot this arrow himself, so he naturally knew better than anyone else how powerful this arrow was. Boundless saintly might and Tao patterns revolved around it. If such an arrow were to hit a star, it would most likely explode that star. Mu Qingtian's body had a problem. He couldn't block this arrow at all. Without any hesitation, he immediately retreated. Although he didn't have Jiu Fei's 8 extreme steps, nor did he have the Sky Rock Race's extreme rock movement technique, with every step he took, Tao patterns would condense under his feet. The space beneath his feet seemed to become an inch of land. With a single step, he would be dozens of miles away. Such speed didn't seem to be inferior to Jiu Fei's 8 extreme steps. But even so, Mu Qingtian was still struck by that arrow light, and he was sent flying thousands of feet away. His clothes were torn, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. That blood was a green color, different from the blood of humans. Legend has it that the supreme heavenly demon's original body was a spiritual root of heaven and earth that was born from the first wood elemental essence Qi when the world was created. After countless years of absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, this spiritual root gave birth to spiritual wisdom and finally cultivated into an invincible extreme demon saint. The son of the sky demon was a descendant of the sky demon. The power contained in his bloodline was too heaven-defying. When the jade blood dripped onto the ground, it melted a part of the red earth. This kind of blood was definitely the most precious blood in the world. One drop could kill a Dao-severing expert. It was the source of Mu Qingtian's power. Mu Qingtian had awakened in this life and was almost beaten back to his original state. His earth-shattering cultivation had disappeared. He had to start cultivating again. His starting point was even worse than old tortoises. But this son of the Sky Demon had obtained the protection of the experts of the Sky Demon bloodline after his awakening. They all treated him as their master. Mu Qingtian had a group of powerful Dao protectors behind him, so his cultivation path was smooth. He didn't seem to encounter any danger before he reached the Deva sovereign realm. Just as he came out of seclusion, he encountered Jiu Fei killing the experts of the Sky Demon bloodline. So he brought the Greenwood Divine Bow and came to settle the score with Jiu Fei. This time, Mu Qingtian held the holy bow but did not bring his Dao protector with him. Roar. After Mu Qingtian steadied himself, he couldn't help but go crazy with rage. He roared at the sky. He had never been injured like this since his awakening. This made his arrogant eyes red. Fortunately, the Greenwood Divine Arrow's target had been Jiu Fei. It had changed direction at the critical moment, or this so-called son of the Sky Demon would have been killed by his own arrow. Swoosh! The green divine light soared into the sky and chased after Jiu Fei. Strange. Didn't you say the arrow would stop when it saw blood? It's already seen blood, so why hasn't it stopped? Jiu Fei's mocking voice rang out from the sky. Wow! Chapter 1263. Swish. The heaven-shocking divine arrow gathered spiritual qi from all directions, and the spiritual qi within a radius of 1,000 miles was almost sucked dry. The resplendent arrow light illuminated the entire heaven and earth, and a terrifying power surged between heaven and earth. The Greenwood Divine Arrow displayed a power that made people's hearts palpitate. Even Jiu Fei couldn't help but be moved at this moment. This arrow was really difficult to break. The divine arrow automatically devoured the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and the power it emitted could only get stronger and stronger. It would never weaken. The longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. Jiu Fei's thoughts turned quickly, and he quickly thought of a way to break it. Chaotic upheaval. He roared and suddenly stopped in the void, facing the heaven-shocking divine arrow that was shooting from the front. This arrow light was like a shooting star that streaked across the void, and the divine light at the tail was dozens of miles long. The divine arrow pierced through the air and arrived before Jiu Fei in an instant. At this moment, a strange fluctuation gushed out from Jiu Fei's body. After that, the space around him distorted. His body seemed to resonate with the world around him, attracting an inconceivable power. Buzz. The distorted space was trembling. The power emitted by the divine arrow was simply too great. The entire space seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. This was the void that Jiu Fei used a supreme immortal art to fix. If it wasn't because of this, the void where Jiu Fei was would have been shot into a chaotic zone by this arrow. Roar. Jiu Fei roared angrily. He felt an unprecedented powerful pressure, and all the muscles and tendons in his body were trembling. All the potential of his corporeal body was released. The yin-yang true force was vast, and blurry Dao marks appeared on Jiu Fei's skin. His clothes instantly turned into ashes, and directly dissipated in the void. Reverse it for me, Jiu Fei roared, and at the same time, his hands were moving, as though he was building layers of transparent spatial barriers, wrapping the divine arrow and shifting it. However, Jiu Fei realized that the incoming divine arrow was like an immortal divine mountain. It was difficult to move. As the divine arrow pressed forward, it seemed as though the void in front of Jiu Fei was being annihilated. His flesh cracked, revealing ghastly cracks. The power of the godly arrow was too strong, so strong that Jiu Fei felt that his life was in danger. Ascend. Jiu Fei didn't hesitate and immediately used another of the 9 secrets of immortal Dao. An extremely ferocious power suddenly erupted from his body. Rumble. The heavens shook and the earth shook. Ripples visible to the naked eye appeared in the entire world. It was as if the entire world had been shifted and reversed. The power of the immortal Dao was vast and mighty. Divine runes condensed on Jiu Fei's hands and were sent into the void by him. The astonishing arrow was finally shaken by his power that had suddenly increased by 10 times. What? How is this possible? Mu Qingtian looked on in shock. He couldn't believe that Jiu Fei could actually block such an arrow. He could also sense the sudden change in Jiu Fei's body. The legendary 9 secrets of immortal Dao. The golden-winged little Peng Emperor was also dumbfounded. He was a descendant of the heavenly Peng, and his race had the most ancient records. He knew that in ancient times, the supreme Dao ancestor had once created 9 kinds of secret arts that could be said to be heaven-defying. However, these secret arts had long since been scattered in the later stages of the primordial era. They were no longer complete. It seemed that only the legendary Ascension secret art could suddenly raise one's strength to an unbelievable level. Martial Dao and immortal Dao combined in one body. Mu Qingtian stared at Jiu Fei, who was doing his best to shift the divine arrow. His eyes narrowed. He could sense that there seemed to be a terrifying ancient heavenly beast hiding in Jiu Fei's body. The world shook and the power of the Dao surged. Jiu Fei had actually managed to reverse the arrow. Go! Jiu Fei shouted. Essence Qi rose from all over his body. Endless power of the immortal Dao interweaved around him. Divine runes of the great Dao appeared in the void. He had reversed the arrow. The dazzling green divine light flew back to Mu Qingtian. The divine light stretched for dozens of miles, tearing the sky and earth apart. After reversing the arrow, Jiu Fei felt as if his body had collapsed. All his strength had been sucked out. He looked a little weary. No one had thought that Jiu Fei could actually reverse such an attack. Even He Tian, who was familiar with Jiu Fei's background, could not help but be moved by Jiu Fei's ability. The 9 secrets of immortal Dao were truly heaven-defying. This time, Mu Qingtian's expression became extremely frightening. He did not know what kind of secret art his opponent had used to completely cut off his connection with the divine arrow. Swish! The divine arrow was as fast as lightning and arrived in front of Mu Qingtian in an instant. Jiu Fei didn't care about the son of the heavenly demon. His thoughts were simple. Whoever wanted to kill him, he would kill them. So what if he was the son of Sky Demon? If he provoked him, he would kill him as well. Jiu Fei did not show mercy. If he wanted to kill him, he would kill him. But his opponent was the son of Sky Demon. If he really killed the son of Sky Demon, then he would really pierce the heavens. But so what if he pierced the sky? Jiu Fei had no qualms at all. He did not care at all. To the heaven realm, he was just a passerby. If he had the chance to return to the mortal domain, he would definitely not stay there. Mu Qingtian was scared out of his wits. Without thinking, he retreated. But as he did so, He Tian, who had been watching from the side, attacked. 9 pieces of divine jade flew out of He Tian's body. Each piece was the size of a palm and contained a terrifying power. The 9 pieces of divine jade's killing formation had been activated. The 9 pieces of divine jade interwove in the air, sealing off all of Mu Qingtian's paths of retreat. He had nowhere to run. He Tian's attack had caused this so-called son of sky demon to fall into a life-and-death situation. The power of the killing formation that rushed out from the 9 pieces of jade was shocking. The power of the formation attracted the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and beams of divine light that were like peerless divine weapons pierced towards Mu Qingtian. However, just as everyone thought that Mu Qingtian was going to be killed by his own arrow, his figure suddenly disappeared into the void. Boom! With a deafening boom, the green arrow light collided with the killing formation formed by Erebus's 9 pieces of divine jade. The 9 pieces of divine jade were instantly shattered into powder. Countless formation lines dissipated in the void, and pitch-black spatial cracks spread into the distance. The power gathered by the heaven-shocking divine arrow was too strong. It was like a hot knife cutting through butter. It seemed invincible. The 9 killing formations set by Erebus were broken at once. He Tian vomited blood and was blown back thousands of meters. Even though he hadn't been hit by the arrow, He Tian was still heavily injured. His body was on the verge of collapse. How could this be? Chapter 1264. The divine arrow shot out, and Erebus attacked with all his strength, shooting out 9 pieces of divine jade with 9 killing formations imprinted on them, sealing off all of Mu Qingtian's escape route. Just when everyone thought that Mu Qingtian was doomed, the son of the sky demon suddenly disappeared. He vanished into thin air without a trace. The 9 killing formations emitted a sky-piercing killing intent as they pressed forward. Countless formation runes enveloped the heavens and earth, colliding with the startling arrow light. Rumble! The heavens and earth were trembling and collapsing. A part of the void seemed to be experiencing great destruction. The 9 killing arrays were directly destroyed by the shocking sword light. Countless array runes dissipated in the void. Roar! He Tian was hit by the arrow light. He roared in anger and was sent flying thousands of meters away. Although he wasn't really hit, his physical body was almost shattered. Terrifying cracks appeared on his body, and he was seriously injured. How is this possible? Everyone was dumbfounded. Mu Qingtian had actually vanished. Ji Yufei immediately used his martial Dao heavenly eye to scan the surroundings. He suddenly felt a sense of danger and charged forward. Bang! Without any warning, a huge green hand smashed through the void behind Ji Yufei and slammed towards his back. The violent force shattered the void, and the place where Ji Yufei was just a moment ago turned into a black hole. Ji Yufei couldn't help being startled. His opponent seemed to have completely merged with heaven and earth. He couldn't determine his opponent's position. He could only sense something strange when his opponent attacked. What divine ability is this? In the distance, the little Peng was also startled. This kind of art was impossible to defend against. As expected, the heavenly demon's son was outstanding. Boss, be careful. This is a grand art created by a heavenly demon. It's comparable to one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the void reversal art. He Tian's voice rang out in Ji Yufei's mind. At this time, He Tian was sitting in the sky, circulating his Xian art to recover. Yin and yang energy interweaved in his body, and his cracked body began to heal at a visible rate. Swish! The green divine light was like a divine rainbow that was dozens of miles long. It flew back from afar and pierced towards Ji Yufei. The void was directly annihilated under the divine light. This peerless arrow light was still gathering spiritual energy from all directions. A wisp of holy might was emitted from the divine light, shaking the heavens and causing everyone's expressions to change. At the same time, the son of the heavenly demon, Mu Qingtian, hid in the void again and continuously attacked Ji Yufei, causing Ji Yufei to be in danger and flustered. What a good son of the heavenly demon. You are worthy of my full strength. Ji Yufei's words were incomparably cold. What, in the sky, the little Peng was surrounded by Dao runes. When he heard Ji Yufei's words, he couldn't help but change his expression. Could it be that this fellow still hadn't used his true strength? Under my divine arrow, the one who will die is you. Mu Qingtian's voice rang out in the void. His voice was erratic and came from all directions, making it hard for others to pinpoint his location. Mu Qingtian's words weren't wrong. This greenwood divine arrow was too powerful. It was gathering spiritual energy on its own, and the power of the arrow was still increasing. Even a sage would have a headache facing this arrow. It had to be known that the owner of the greenwood divine bow was a great sage of the demon race in the ancient times. This great sage had used his own divine wood body to refine this divine bow. This holy bow originally had 9 divine arrows, but in ancient times, 6 of them were used by the great sage of the demon race when he fought against a powerful enemy. Now, there were only 3 divine arrows left. After Mu Qingtian obtained the greenwood divine bow, he was very confident. He believed that no one in this world could withstand an arrow shot from the greenwood divine bow. In the current great era, sages were extinct. There really wasn't anyone who could withstand an arrow shot from the greenwood divine bow. Unfortunately, one of the 3 greenwood divine arrows was already damaged. More than half of the Dao patterns on the body of the arrow had been erased. It was also because the Dao patterns on the arrow were damaged, making it difficult for it to gather spiritual energy. That was why Ji Yufei had broken it. If it was a complete divine arrow, even if Ji Yufei successfully severed his Dao and condensed his mighty martial body, it would still be difficult to break it. Void reversal. Ji Yufei didn't say anything else. He immediately used one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Dao, the void reversal mystic art. His body immediately surged with a strange fluctuation, and then his body started to fade and become illusory. 9 secrets of the immortal Dao. Mu Qingtian's exclamation rang out in the void. As the son of the sky demon, his knowledge was naturally extraordinary. He could tell at a glance that Ji Yufei was using the 9 secrets of the immortal Dao. At this moment, Ji Yufei seemed to have become one with the great Dao of heaven and earth. His perception was several times stronger, and he could feel every detail in this world. He immediately sensed Mu Qingtian's existence. Swoosh. Ji Yufei's body was merged with heaven and earth, but he could still use his martial arts battle techniques. He used the 8 desolate steps and charged at Mu Qingtian. The divine arrows that were shooting at him could no longer hurt him. So what if it was a divine arrow shot by the greenwood divine bow? Ji Yufei's body was now merged with heaven and earth, and the power that emanated from the divine arrows was drawn into the surrounding world, turning into nothingness. What? Mu Qingtian was truly shocked when he saw this. Such a great technique could be said to be heaven-defying. The 9 secrets of the immortal Dao were indeed extraordinary. They were profound and unfathomable, and their power was not inferior to the great techniques created by the sky demon. This was a different kind of confrontation between the supreme Dao ancestor and the sky demon. The great techniques created by the 2 extreme Dao experts were displayed by Ji Yufei and Mu Qingtian. Right now, Mu Qingtian was also in a profound state. Ancient demon patterns appeared on his body, and the demon patterns were branded in the void. It made Mu Qingtian seem to have jumped out of the 3 realms, no longer within the 5 element. This great technique was indeed similar to one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Dao, the anti-void secret art created by the supreme Dao ancestor. Both could allow one to merge with the void of heaven and earth. However, there was a huge difference between the 9 secrets of the immortal Dao and the great technique created by the sky demon. Ji Yufei's body had become almost transparent, as if he had been branded into the void of heaven and earth. As for Mu Qingtian's body, there was no change. He had used the Dao patterns to isolate himself from the void of heaven and earth. It was as if he had opened up a small world in the void. Sky Demon forgets emotion, invincible. Chapter 1265. Killing arts created by extreme Dao experts were no small matter. Once they were used, even sovereigns who hadn't severed their Dao would be able to draw out a trace of Dao energy. This was the Dao energy condensed by the sacred art itself. Even a half-saint would pale in the face of such an attack, and they would have to be careful. Mu Qingtian used one of the killing arts created by the Sky Demon. Tao energy interweaved in his eyes, and two transparent beams of killing light shot out of them. These were two beams of killing light that had escaped into the void, and were almost untraceable. But in front of Ji Yufei, even these untraceable beams of killing light were accurately captured by him. After he used one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the antivoid secret art, his spiritual perception could sense the pulse of heaven and earth. Ji Yufei ignored the two invisible killing lights in front of him and directly rushed forward. A scene that made everyone dumbfounded appeared. The two beams of killing light pierced through Ji Yufei's body. It was as if they had passed through a layer of transparent water, as if they hadn't hit anything at all. Mu Qingtian was shocked. He almost couldn't believe his eyes. His opponent had been struck by the Sky Demon's merciless slash, but he was completely fine. This was something that had never happened before. Merciless slash could slash anything in the world, both tangible and intangible. But this time, this killing art created by the Sky Demon had actually failed. Bang! While Mu Qingtian was still in a daze, Ji Yufei's palm had already slammed over. The violent palm force sent Mu Qingtian flying, almost knocking him out of the void. The greenwood divine arrow that had shot out from behind Ji Yufei also seemed to have shot through the air. Everyone found this inconceivable. Right now, Ji Yufei was practically invulnerable. No matter how unparalleled his divine abilities or immortal arts were, it would be difficult to get close to him and pose any threat to him. Ji Yufei and the others were in an invincible position. 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. The little Peng Emperor could not help but feel uneasy when he saw this scene. Even the son of the Sky Demon was being forced back by Ji Yufei. If he was the one fighting Ji Yufei now, would he be able to deal with this supreme technique? The supreme demonic ancestor of the primordial era was an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the extreme Tao saint. It was really difficult to distinguish the power of the great techniques created by the two. According to the current situation, it seemed that the immortal Tao created by the Wushang Tao ancestor was slightly better. Samsara extermination. Mu Qingtian roared and a terrifying wave of demonic power erupted from his body. The entire heavens and earth trembled as 6 black holes appeared around him. Boom! The 6 black holes instantly expanded, enveloping the entire world as they swallowed towards Ji Yufei. Each of the black holes emitted a heaven-devouring power. The void of heaven and earth was collapsing and shattering. 6 black holes devoured the void, obliterating everything. This was a supreme killing technique. Ji Yufei didn't dodge at all. He directly charged towards the 6 black holes descending from the sky. He had transformed into a manifestation of heaven and earth. In the current world, no one had been able to devour heaven and earth. The 6 black holes emitted heart-palpitating fluctuations, shattering a part of the void. However, they were unable to swallow Ji Yufei into the black holes. Rumble, the sky-shaking arrow light chased after Ji Yufei and directly shot over. The 6 black holes immediately suffered a great impact and trembled repeatedly before collapsing in an instant. Damn it! Mu Qingtian's killing art had been broken, causing him to suffer a huge impact. A trace of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. He flew back dozens of miles before stabilizing himself. Up to this point, Mu Qingtian had been suppressed by Ji Yufei. The son of the heavenly demon doesn't seem to be as powerful as others say he is. The little Peng couldn't help shaking his head. The son of the heavenly demon had an incomparably noble status, but his cultivation didn't match his status. Mu Qingtian wanted to shoot the final arrow, but he didn't. He put away the greenwood divine bow and the greenwood divine arrow. 2 invisible rays of killing light flew back into Mu Qingtian's eyes. At the same time, a ray of green light appeared on Mu Qingtian's forehead. At this time, Ji Yufei charged over once more. Swish! A ball of green divine light shot out from between Mu Qingtian's eyebrows. Within the divine light was a green tree. On the green tree, there were many Tao patterns faintly visible. This was not Mu Qingtian's primordial spirit. Ji Yufei could not sense any soul ripples from the green tree that was wrapped in green light. The green tree contained endless wood elemental essence. A spirit root. Ji Yufei's expression changed when he saw the small green tree that rushed out of Mu Qingtian's Niwen palace. This was definitely a rare treasure tree. Swish. Mu Qingtian stretched out his hand and grabbed the green tree. Then, he swept it towards Ji Yufei. The green tree immediately emitted a towering wood elemental power. Something unexpected happened. An irresistible force emitted from the green tree actually swept away Ji Yufei, who was in the heaven and earth union. Boom. At the same time, a peerless arrow of light shot over. The aura coming from the arrow was saintly. It shook the heavens and made even Ji Yufei feel a sense of danger. If he allowed this arrow to continue devouring the world's essence, even if he used the void-dispelling secret art, he would probably be struck by this arrow and die. Although Ji Yufei's martial body was powerful, it was still unable to endure the power of a saint. In just an instant, the situation had been reversed. The battle between the two of them had reached a peak. Ji Yufei hadn't expected Mu Qingtian to have a tree that was comparable to a saint artifact. This wasn't a whole divine tree. It seemed to be just a branch, but it was surrounded by holy light. With one look, one could tell that this branch was definitely broken off from a saint-level spirit root. Ji Yufei was unable to maintain his state of being one with heaven and earth. He fell out of the void, and at this time, that divine arrow was already shooting over. This was the power of a saint. It covered the entire world, making it impossible for Ji Yufei to dodge. Just as Ji Yufei was about to be killed, a black hole suddenly appeared in his dantian. That black hole instantly grew, covering heaven and earth. It actually wanted to absorb this saint artifact. That was too crazy. No matter how powerful a human's martial body was, it couldn't absorb a saint artifact with its full power into his body. The consequence of doing that was that his body would explode, and his soul would be destroyed. His crazy. Chapter 1266. The greenwood divine arrow would not stop until it saw blood. When Mu Qingtian shot this arrow, he was already determined to kill Ji Yufei. He swore to shoot this human race martial physique to death. Rumble, the shocking divine arrow streaked across the void, emitting a terrifying sage aura that shook the entire world. If this wasn't the depths of the Scarlet Plains, the world would probably have collapsed. Green divine light surged for dozens of miles. Within the divine light, there were great Tao demon patterns that gathered spiritual chi from all directions. This was a flawless sage divine arrow. Although a sage weapon did not contain a divine will, it was imprinted with great Tao saint patterns. It was definitely the most powerful weapon in the world and could kill a sage. At this moment, Ji Yufei was swept out of the void by Mu Qingtian with a branch of the greenwood divine tree. The greenwood divine arrow shot in front of him in an instant, making it impossible for him to dodge. When everyone saw this scene, they thought that Ji Yufei was definitely going to die. One had to know that the greenwood divine arrow gathered endless spiritual chi and released sage aura. Even a sage would probably be shocked, let alone a half-sage. A puny sovereign who had not yet severed his Tao would definitely not be able to withstand this arrow. However, Ji Yufei's actions caused everyone to be dumbstruck. The true power on his body was vast and mighty, and his chi and blood soared to the heavens. A black hole actually appeared in his dantian, emitting a heaven-devouring power. He wanted to swallow the saint-grade divine arrow into his body. Do you think you're a great sage? How dare you suppress a sage weapon with your body? Mu Qingtian looked disdainful. Although Ji Yufei had a human race martial physique and his body was so strong that it was invincible among his peers, it was impossible for him to absorb the divine arrow into his body. This guy is committing suicide. When the little Peng Emperor saw this, he couldn't help but shake his head. The human race martial physique was about to be killed. There would be one less powerful opponent on the road to proving his Tao. No one was optimistic about Ji Yufei. They had already guessed what would happen to him. However, He Tian keenly sensed an almost imperceptible strange fluctuation coming from Ji Yufei's dantian, causing him to come to a sudden realization. The world was collapsing and shattering. Everything in front of Ji Yufei was devoured by the black hole. Even that shocking arrow of light was sucked in. How is this possible? Mu Qingtian and the little Peng were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Did this fellow really have the power to suppress saint weapons? If this guy's body really had the power to suppress a saint weapon, then he would probably be killed with a single slap. Mu Qingtian was bewildered. This human martial body definitely did not have the cultivation and strength to suppress a saint weapon with his body, but how did he do it? The tens of miles long arrow light gradually sank into Ji Yufei's dantian and was swallowed by that black hole. This scene was too shocking. All the pores on Ji Yufei's body were spewing true power. Rays of lightning-like divine light revolved around his body. On Ji Yufei's skin, blurry Dao patterns appeared. A trace of Dao runes circulated around his body. The blurry Dao patterns attracted Dao power. Rumble, the world shook, and the sky seemed like it was about to collapse. The black hole that had appeared from Ji Yufei's dantian enveloped the entire world. It was as terrifying as if it could devour the entire world. Ji Yufei's figure disappeared. He seemed to have turned into a black hole that could devour the world. He seemed to be using some kind of heaven-defying technique to devour the world. This, Mu Qingtian and the little Peng were shocked. Although this human martial body's actions were extremely crazy, it didn't seem impossible. A portion of the greenwood divine arrow had already sunk into that terrifying black hole. Even with the great Dao demon patterns revolving around it, it still couldn't destroy that black hole. How is this possible? This is the power of a saint. The little Peng felt a trace of unease. The power of the human martial body seemed to be much more terrifying than he had imagined. He couldn't truly figure out how strong it was. There was no light in the depths of the black hole, but it emitted an aura that caused all living things to tremble. Mu Qingtian and the little Peng's hearts trembled. The little Peng and the others felt that all of this was too surreal. An emperor who hadn't even severing the Dao, even if his body was abnormally strong, it couldn't possibly suppress the power of a saint. Damn it! Seeing that the black hole that covered the world could actually devour the greenwood divine arrow, Mu Qingtian couldn't help but turn pale. He soared into the sky and used his supreme demonic arts. Swoosh! 2 beams of great Dao divine light flashed in his eyes. Then, 2 invisible beams of Dao light shot out from his eyes and slashed towards the black hole in the sky. This was the sky demon forgetting slash, which was said to be able to slash everything in the world. However, these 2 beams of unmoved slashes that shot out from Mu Qingtian's eyes couldn't tear apart the terrifying black hole in the sky. Not only could they not tear apart the black hole, but they were also instantly devoured by the heaven-devouring power that came from the black hole. The great Dao-killing light condensed from the supreme demonic arts had been obliterated by the black hole. This shocked Mu Qingtian to the extreme. He couldn't accept this result. At this time, the greenwood divine arrow had been completely absorbed by the black hole and had escaped Mu Qingtian's control. The dozens of miles of green divine light was gradually being obliterated by the terrifying devouring power that came from the black hole. The divine light gradually dimmed. Mu Qingtian was furious. He used all his power to try and shatter the black hole, but he found that all his attacks had been dissolved by the black hole. This made Mu Qingtian feel like he was attacking a supreme saint. He couldn't move his opponent at all. Instead, he was almost devoured by the black hole. This kind of technique shocked not just the son of the sky demon, Mu Qingtian, but also the little Peng who was watching from afar. This wasn't a body technique of the martial path. Could it be that this human martial body possessed the strength of several schools? Boss's move is really brilliant. In the distant sky, He Tian's eyes flickered with divine light. He already knew what Ji Yufei was doing. Ji Yufei was using the mountain and river cauldron to collect the saint arrow that was unleashing its full power. Ji Yufei didn't dare to casually use the extreme Dao sacred weapon. Unless it was a life and death situation, he wouldn't use it. It had to be known that the extreme Dao sacred weapon was a supreme sacred weapon refined by an extreme Dao great saint. Such a sacred weapon was publicly recognized as the strongest sacred weapon in the 9 heavens and 10 earths. It contained a weapon soul and was branded with a complete great Dao. It was definitely a priceless treasure. As long as one was a cultivator, they would all want to obtain such an ultimate sacred weapon. If Ji Yufei let others know that he had an extreme Dao sacred weapon, the consequences would be unimaginable. He would become the public enemy of the world. At this time, Ji Yufei had already used the power of heaven and earth to conceal the aura and ripples of the extreme Dao sacred weapon. People outside would definitely not be able to sense the aura and ripples of the sacred weapon. Buzz. In Jiu Fei's inner world, an ancient cauldron was vibrating. A figure was sitting cross-legged on the ground, gathering the spiritual energy of the inner world and pouring it into the ancient cauldron. This was Jiu Fei's primordial spirit activating the mountain and river cauldron. Boundless spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered from all directions and entered the mountain and river cauldron. The mouth of the mountain and river cauldron produced a terrifying heaven-devouring power, which stopped the sacred arrow. Without any suspense, in front of the extreme Tao sacred weapon, the sacred weapon refined by the demon race's great saint would be completely suppressed. They were both saints, but the gap between an extreme Tao saint and a great saint couldn't be calculated in terms of Tao. There was no comparison between the two. The extreme Tao was the perfection of the great Tao. A great saint was just a cultivator who had comprehended the great Tao to a nearly perfect state. In front of an extreme Tao saint, a great saint was as weak as an ant. A complete great Tao could intimidate the 9 heavens and 10 earths. It was invincible in the heaven and earth. It could completely suppress an incomplete great Tao. There was no suspense in this. The mountain and river cauldron could suppress the greenwood divine arrow. The dazzling green divine light was gradually extinguished, and the greenwood divine arrow that was wrapped in the divine light gradually appeared. The entire divine arrow was surrounded by Tao patterns, and a vast and mighty saint's might. If it wasn't for the mountain and river cauldron's divine might that froze the void, this saint's might could have crushed the world and shattered the void. Mu Qingtian saw that the light of the greenwood divine arrow was gradually dimming. Seeing that it was about to be sucked into the black hole, he couldn't help but become anxious. Then, he used a great technique, wanting to retrieve the divine arrow, but it was already too late. The power of the mountain and river cauldron had already completely cut off the connection between Mu Qingtian and the divine arrow. It had severed everything between the two. Mu Qingtian couldn't even sense the existence of the greenwood divine arrow. Roar! Mu Qingtian roared at the sky. His green hair was dancing wildly. His right hand flashed with green light, and a green divine tree appeared in his hand. Swish! Mu Qingtian held the divine tree and swept it towards the black hole in the sky. Endless divine light rushed out of the divine tree and tore the void, wanting to disperse the black hole in the sky. Rumble! The entire black hole was shaking. The divine tree in Mu Qingtian's hand displayed great power. The power of the wood element was vast, and it almost destroyed the black hole. In Jiu Fei's inner world, Jiu Fei's Yuan spirit laughed coldly. He circulated the supreme immortal Tao technique with all his strength. The spiritual qi in the world immediately gathered towards the mountain and river cauldron. Jiu Fei was the master of this world. With just a thought, he could draw in the boundless spiritual energy of the world. In the depths of this world, several huge streams of spiritual energy rose. Those currents of spiritual qi that were like huge dragons all rushed towards the mountain and river cauldron and entered it. Bang! The mountain and river cauldron that had absorbed endless spiritual qi shook out a strand of extreme divine might. The huge black hole immediately stabilized, and Mu Qingtian was sent flying by a huge force. A trace of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. What kind of divine ability is this? It can actually compete with a saint artifact. Chapter 1267. At noon, the masters of the Shangqing sect and the Guangqing celestial sect gathered outside the gate of the Taishan sect. Xian Yuan, the old monster of the Guangqing celestial sect, and Lin Outsang, the old leader of the Shangqing sect, communicated telepathically. Although it was said that they had come to visit the mountain, they had the intention of demonstrating to the Taishan sect. The arrival of 20 or 30 peerless masters had indeed made the Taishan sect very nervous. Swish, 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 above the 9 peaks of Taishan, brilliant beams of light rushed out one after another. Waves of vast magical power surged between heaven and earth. Each beam of light was a peerless master. More than a dozen beams of light emitted terrifying energy fluctuations. They flew directly in the direction of the mountain gate, like a divine rainbow, crossing the sky. At this time, the entire Taishan sect was in an uproar. All the disciples stopped what they were doing and came out from all over Taishan Mountain. The words of Shenyuan and Lin Aotsang spread throughout the entire Taishan mountain. Every disciple of the Taishan sect above the 9 peaks could hear them clearly. Dang, dang, dang. Above Taishan Peak, which was surrounded by the 8 peaks, a melodious bell rang out. The bell pierced through the void with an unfathomable power. It ignored all barriers and spread throughout the entire mountain range of Taishan Mountain. Some of the elders of the Taishan sect, who had long been indifferent to the affairs of the world, were also alarmed by the bell. They all came out of their seclusion, then set up beams of light and headed for Taishan Peak. The disciples of the 9 branches, after hearing the bell, also gathered at Taishan Peak. The bell on Taishan Peak would only ring when something important happened. That was the signal to summon all the disciples of the sect. The disciples of the Taishan sect who heard the bell, no matter what they were doing, immediately put down what they were doing and gathered at Taishan Peak. The beams of light that rushed out from the 9 peaks of Taishan quickly came to the sky above the gate of the Taishan sect. The head of the Taishan sect, Daoist Shentian, led the other 8 leaders, descended from the sky. Brother Shenyuan, Brother Lin, I am late to welcome you. Please forgive me. Daoist Shentian descended and then led a group of his juniors to greet Shenyuan, Lin Aotsang, and the others who had gathered outside the mountain gate. The expressions of the 7 leaders behind Daoist Shentian did not look so good. The people of the Shongqing sect and the Guangqing Celestial sect had clearly made an agreement beforehand to take the Supreme Mystery sect down a notch. Old Monster Shenyuan wore a white robe and was a cold young man with a head of white hair. The elder of the Shongqing sect standing next to Old Monster Shenyuan was a middle-aged Daoist with 3 strands of black beard floating in front of his chest. Whether it was Old Monster Shenyuan or Lin Aotsang, they had both started their careers earlier than Daoist Shentian. No one found it inappropriate for Daoist Shentian to refer to himself as little brother. After all, the world of cultivation was a place where strength was everything. Although Daoist Shentian was the sect master of the Taishan sect, his cultivation was still weaker than that of Shenyuan and Lin Aotsang. Old Monster Shenyuan and Lin Aotsang did not have much lifespan left. If they did not break through their current cultivation shackles, they would only have 10 to 20 years left. Daoist Shentian was very clear on how terrifying these people were. When their lifespan reached its end, they weren't afraid of death. They could act without any misgivings. Who was the scariest? People who weren't afraid of death and didn't have any misgivings were the scariest. Fellow Daoist Shentian, I believe you know why we are here. A faint smile appeared on Old Monster Xuanyuan's cold face as he looked at Daoist Shentian meaningfully. Daoist Shentian and the 7 leaders stood inside the sect. They did not walk out of the sect, but Old Monster Shenyuan, Lin Aotsang, and the others were outside. The elders of the Shongqing sect and the Guangqing Celestial sect were separated from the experts of the Supreme Mystery sect by a white jade archway. Why do you say that, Brother Shenyuan? How would I know why you are here? Daoist Xuantian's face was calm and did not reveal any emotion. Outside the sect, the experts of the Guangqing Celestial sect and the Shongqing sect heard this and began to panic. They all glared at Daoist Shentian and seemed very agitated. Lin Aotsang, the elder of the Shongqing sect, sneered and stepped forward. He looked coldly at Daoist Shentian and said, Fellow Daoist Shentian, this is your fault. Since you have already found that person and brought him back to the Supreme Mystery sect, you did not inform us. Did you want to keep that thing to yourself? Yes, the Supreme Mystery sect has gone too far. They said the 3 great Daoist sects were on the same side, but it turns out they were all bullsh*t. It seems that the alliance of the 3 great Daoist sects cannot be maintained any longer. The Supreme Mystery sect had better explain this clearly. Outside the white jade archway, the elders of the Guangqing Celestial sect and the Shongqing sect were very agitated. Some of them directly criticized Daoist Shentian and the others. At this time, there were many lights in the sky behind Daoist Shentian. Some of the elders of the Taishan sect heard the ringing of the bell to summon the disciples, so they flew to the Taishan temple on Taishan Peak, while others came directly to the sect. However, these elders were not willing to come out. They just stayed in the air and watched the sect closely. If something really happened, they would immediately help Daoist Shentian and the others. The moment the bell on Taishan Peak rang, the disciples of the 9 peaks and 9 branches immediately gathered at Taishan Peak. From time to time, one could see rays of light shooting into the sky from the outer spirit peaks, flying towards Taishan Peak, which was surrounded by the 8 peaks. What, at this time, does fellow Daoist Shentian still not open the protective formation and let us in? Old monster Xuanyuan's white hair moved without any wind. Then, an extremely obscure but frightening sword chi emanated from his body. Daoist Shentian and the heads of the 7 branches couldn't help but be moved when they saw this. Old monster Shenyuan and Lin Outsang were not easy to deal with, let alone the 20 or 30 peerless cultivators of the Shongqing sect and the Guangqing celestial sect. Old monster Shenyuan and Lin Outsang were both cultivators at the peak of the royal void realm who had dominated the world for 700 or 800 years. Their cultivation was even more terrifying than that of an ordinary cultivator at the 9th layer of the royal void realm. Because they were only one step away from the demigod realm. It could be said that old monster Shenyuan and Lin Outsang were old monsters who had already taken half a step into the demigod realm. Senior brother sect leader, what do we do now? Daoist Zhaoyang asked Daoist Shentian. The other heads of the branches' voices also rang in Daoist Xuantian's ears. Daoist Shentian couldn't help but frown. What was going to happen was going to happen. Daoist Shentian knew very well that the news of Ji Yufei's return was absolutely difficult to completely block. Each of the 3 great Daoist sects had planted spies in the other's territory. Although the 3 great Daoist sects were on the same side, they still had to be wary of others. This kind of thing was not really a secret within the 3 great Daoist sects. The people of the Guangqing celestial sect and the Shangqing sect swore not to give up today. Daoist Shentian pondered for a moment, then waved his sleeve and said loudly, "Open the gate and welcome our honored guest." Daoist Xuantian's voice spread far and wide. Rumble. Immediately after, there was a sound like muffled thunder in the void. The white jade arch outside the mountain gate shone with brilliant spiritual light. Space started to tremble as numerous ripples that were visible to the naked eye surged out mightily from the white jade memorial arch. After that, a door that seemed like a spatial door appeared beneath the memorial arch, and then a strand of strange energy surged out mightily from the white jade memorial arch. There seemed to be nothing in the void, but in fact, there was a great invisible power that blocked old monster Shenyuan outside the mountain gate. Otherwise, old monster Shenyuan and Lin Outsang would have brought the masters of the 2 sects and rushed to the Taishan Peak. Why would they still be gathered outside the mountain gate of the Taishan sect? The protective formation of the Taishan sect was one of the best in the Daoist sects. It was connected to the qi of the earth and the power of the stars, condensing the power of heaven and earth. Even a demigod would find it difficult to shake it. Just as Daoist Shentian was welcoming the people of the Guangqing celestial sect and the Shangqing sect into the Taishan sect, the door of the cave abode on the Green Spirit Peak was slowly opening. The sound of the bell to summon the disciples had an unfathomable penetrating power. Even cultivators who were in a deep state of meditation would wake up from their state of cultivation. Ji Yufei was no exception. He was in the middle of comprehending the mysterious supreme great path imprinted in his heart. He was in a state of half-awake and half-dream. The bell was like a morning bell, waking Ji Yufei up from his mysterious state of martial arts. Then, Ji Yufei walked out of the cave abode. In the past 10 days, he had constantly tried to comprehend the supreme great path imprinted in his heart. However, he did not know if it was because his cultivation level was not high enough. It seemed that it was difficult for him to truly touch the supreme great path. Even so, Ji Yufei had benefited a lot in the past 10 days. Although his cultivation level had not increased, his state of mind had improved, making him feel as if he had been enlightened. His understanding of Wu had deepened by another level. When Ji Yufei came out of the cave abode, he immediately felt that the atmosphere in the mountain seemed to be very strange. He saw that from time to time, there were light flying back and forth between the various spiritual peaks. Countless disciples were gathering towards the Taishan Peak. It seemed that something big had happened in the sect, and it was not an ordinary big thing. Otherwise, they would not have rung the divine bell and summoned the disciples. Just as Jiu Fei was about to rise into the air and fly towards the Taishan peak, suddenly, a bright light, like a divine rainbow, shot up from the Taishan peak and flew towards him. Why did she come to the Green Spirit Peak? Is it for the longevity grass again? Are those old people in the sect finally unable to wait? Jiu Fei thought to himself. Swish! The sound of breaking through the air came, and the light that flew out from the Taishan peak quickly came close. Jiu Fei only felt that there was a flash of divine light in front of him. In the light, an old woman flew down from the sky. Greetings, Senior Sister Qi. After seeing the person, Jiu Fei quickly saluted. Haha, Junior Brother Jiu, no need to be so polite. The light dissipated, and in the open space in front of Jiu Fei, an old woman with white hair and wrinkled skin appeared. Chapter 1268. Lady Qi's arrival at this time surprised Jiu Fei. After all, after the bell on Taishan Peak rang, the Taishan disciples who heard the bell had to go to Taishan Temple of Taishan Peak to await the orders of the sect leader. I don't know why Senior Sister Qi has come to my place. Jiu Fei greeted her with a smile. He did not dare to neglect her. Qi Daoist was an elder of the Taishan sect. In fact, Jiu Fei knew very well that the reason the seniors in the sect were polite to him and addressed him as junior brother was because of Daoist Ku Rong. Master Ku Rong was the only demigod in the Taishan sect, and even in the entire three great Taoist sects. In the world of cultivation, he was often regarded as a deterrent force. With the existence of a demigod, the Taoist sects could have unlimited glory and did not have to worry about being destroyed or annexed by other great forces. Therefore, not to mention in the Taishan sect, Daoist Ku Rong was also a unique existence in the entire Dao sect. Although Jiu Fei was only a registered disciple of Daoist Ku Rong, he was not considered a true disciple who had inherited his mantle. But even so, Daoist Shentian and the other elders of the Taishan sect did not dare to neglect Jiu Fei. If Master Ku Rong had not accepted Jiu Fei as an honorary disciple, how could the elders of the sect take a junior like him, who had just broken through to the void controlling realm, seriously? It should be known that the elders of the sect had been famous for hundreds of years, and in the world of cultivation, they were also well-known experts. There were also 9 heavens in the imperial void realm. Those who were able to become elders in the sect were all terrifying experts in the 8th and 9th heavens of the imperial void realm. These people, even among the peerless experts of the imperial void realm, they also belonged to the strongest group of people. Although Jiu Fei's cultivation had completely stabilized and no longer fluctuated, his first layer of the void controlling realm was nothing in the eyes of Daoist Shentian, Qi Daoist, and the others. Haha, junior brother Jiu, I came to tell you that you don't need to go to Taishan Temple, said Qi Daoist. Jiu Fei couldn't help but be startled when he heard that. The other party actually didn't come for the longevity grass, which surprised him a little. Senior Sister Qi, what happened in the sect? Jiu Fei was a little confused. The divine bell had been rung on Taishan Peak to summon the disciples of the sect. Something big must have happened in the sect. Hearing this, old woman Qi paused for a moment before saying, the Guangcheng Immortal sect and the Shongqing sect are here for a visit. We are well aware of their intentions. They won't be able to do anything. The Guangcheng Immortal sect and the Shongqing sect are here to pay a visit. Jiu Fei was taken aback. No one should have known that his cheap master, Daoist Ku Rong, had brought him back to the Taishan sect. How could the Guangcheng Celestial sect and the Shongqing sect have come to him so quickly? Jiu Fei didn't know that a lot of things could happen in 10 days. Old woman Qi nodded and said, you can cultivate behind closed doors on Green Spirit Peak. The sect leader and the other elders will take care of the matters outside. You don't have to worry. Old woman Qi didn't seem to want to say more. She simply said a few words and told Jiu Fei not to leave Green Spirit Peak easily. Then she left. Jiu Fei watched old woman Qi's escape light disappear from Taishan Peak, but his heart was unexpectedly calm. There were people in the sect who would take care of things, and he didn't have to worry about it. In that case, he would cultivate on Green Spirit Peak. The people of the Guangcheng Celestial sect and the Shongqing sect had come for nothing more than the longevity grass. Would they really dare to make a move in the Taishen sect? The three great Taoist sects were on the same side. Everyone understood that old monster Shenyuan and Lin Outsang were just putting on a show. Ji Yufei pondered for a moment. After understanding the subtleties of the situation, he turned and walked into the cave residence, closing the door behind him. At this time, of the 9 peaks of Taishen, only Green Spirit Peak was as cold and cheerless as usual, but the other 8 peaks were bustling with activity. Taishen disciples could be seen everywhere in the mountains and forest. The Guangcheng Celestial Sect and the Shongqing Sect, to put it nicely, had come to visit the sect. To put it bluntly, they had come to denounce the Taishen sect. In any case, the Taishen sect's desire to take the longevity grass for themselves had angered the old monsters of the Guangcheng Celestial Sect and the Shongqing Sect. In addition to the sect leader of the Guangcheng Celestial Sect and the leader of the Shongqing Sect, the two sects could be said to have brought all the masters of their sects, and they came to the Taishen sect aggressively. The people in the lead were old monster Shenyuan of the Guangcheng Celestial Sect and Lin Outsang of the Shongqing Sect. The seniority of these two people was higher than that of the sect leader of the Guangcheng Celestial Sect and the leader of the Shongqing Sect. Their cultivation and strength were strong, and they were the top figures of the two sects. Ji Yufei returned to the cave residence, closed the door, and continued to sit cross-legged. He continued to comprehend the brand of the great path that was engraved in his heart. The path of martial arts was full of difficulties and dangers, especially in this era of martial arts decline. To be able to comprehend the great path of the predecessors would allow one to avoid many detours. Although the great path of the predecessors was not necessarily his own path, different paths led to the same destination. The great path left behind by the ultimate warriors was priceless to Ji Yufei. If he could comprehend the great path, Ji Yufei believed that even if he could not surpass the predecessors, his achievements would definitely not be inferior to those of the predecessor. Another 3 or 4 days passed, and surprisingly, no one came to disturb Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei also continued to cultivate in the cave residence. In the cave residence, there were many elixirs left behind by the ancestors of the Green Spirit Peak. Ji Yufei did not care about the other elixirs, but there was one elixir that was his favorite. This elixir was very common, and it was common stuff that could be found everywhere. This elixir could not increase Ji Yufei's cultivation, nor could it increase his realm. This elixir only had one effect, and that was, even if an ordinary person took one, they would not need to eat or drink for 3 or 4 days. The pill of fasting was a kind of elixir that almost all cultivators who knew a little about alchemy could refine. Ji Yufei only took one pill of fasting, and in these 3 or 4 days, he did not need to eat or worry about food, so he could cultivate in peace in the cave residence. The people of the Guangcheng Celestial Sect and the Shongqing Sect did not appear in the Green Spirit Peak. Old monster Shenyuan and Lin Outsang were in the Supreme Mystery Temple, and it was unknown what kind of agreement they had with Daoist Shentian, but the masters of the Guangcheng Celestial Sect and the Shongqing Sect actually stayed in the Supreme Mystery Sect. The people of the Guangcheng Celestial Sect and the Shongqing Sect all became well-behaved, and did not do anything that would embarrass the Supreme Mystery Sect. They seemed to have some misgivings, but it seemed like they were waiting. The Supreme Mystery Sect returned to peace, and the disciples of the 9 branches also returned to their respective places to cultivate, to comprehend the illusory true immortal path. And on the 5th day, Ji Yufei woke up from his meditation, and then he felt a familiar fluctuation of spiritual power coming from outside the door of the cave residence. Feeling this fluctuation of spiritual power, Ji Yufei could not help but have a strange expression on his face. "Why is she here?" he muttered to himself. Ji Yufei stood up, then tidied up his clothes, opened the cave residence, and walked out. "Brother Ji Yu, it really is you. You really came back." Before the door of the cave residence was fully opened, a voice full of surprise and excitement came from outside. "Sister Zhao." Of course, Ji Yufei recognized this familiar voice. The person outside the door was Zhao Ziru, a female disciple of the Purple Bamboo Peak of the 9 Peaks of Supreme Mystery. In the Supreme Mystery Sect, Ji Yufei did not have many friends that he could talk to, and Zhao Ziru was one of them. Moreover, when it came to Zhao Ziru, Ji Yufei had a strange feeling that he could not explain. At first, Ji Yufei did not know what this feeling was, but ever since he saw Li Mengyaro again in the northern lands, he suddenly understood what this feeling was. It was like, yes, like someone. This feeling was really wonderful. No wonder there was a sage from ancient times who said that they only envied mandarin ducks, not immortals. Ji Yufei was a warrior, and he was particular about freedom. He was not one of those cultivators who had a pure heart and few desires. He would not, and would not, bother to hide his temperament. Brother Ji Yu, outside the door of the cave residence, a woman wearing a light green dress stood gracefully. This woman was like a lotus flower out of the water. Her skin was delicate, and her black hair casually draped over her shoulders. This woman was staring blankly at Ji Yufei, who had just walked out of the cave residence. Her spirited eyes seemed to be shrouded in a layer of mist. Sister Zhao, what's wrong? When Ji Yufei saw that Zhao Ziru was about to cry, he could not help but feel his heart tighten. He quickly asked, wondering if Sister Zhao had been wronged in some way. When Ji Yufei asked this question, a line of clear tears finally flowed from Zhao Ziru's large, spirited eyes. Then, she leaped, and like a light breeze, she threw herself into Ji Yufei's arms. This sudden change caused Ji Yufei's mind to instantly go blank. He actually temporarily lost the ability to think. His nose smelled the faint fragrance on Zhao Ziru's body. Unknowingly, Ji Yufei felt his heart beating faster and faster, more and more powerful. Thump, thump, thump. It was like the beating of a drum. Junior Sister Zhao. Ji Yufei was a bit at a loss. He wanted to hug Zhao Ziru, but he was a bit afraid. He wanted to move away from Zhao Ziru, but he was also a bit unwilling. With a warm and fragrant body in his arms, Ji Yufei's heart rippled, giving him a wonderful feeling as if he was in a dream. Zhao Ziru was undoubtedly an extremely beautiful woman. Although she was not as breathtakingly beautiful as the demon race princess Yang Wushuang, she had a temperament that Yang Wushuang didn't have. Zhao Ziru was elegant and otherworldly, as if she was a moon fairy who walked out of the moon palace. Senior brother Ji Yu, I thought you were in the virtual sky world. I thought I would never see you again. At this time, Zhao Ziru revealed her true feelings. It turned out that unknowingly, Ji Yufei's shadow had actually appeared in her heart. Moreover, this shadow seemed to be branded in her heart. No matter how hard Zhao Ziru tried, she couldn't erase it. She was a cultivator, and what she cultivated was Tao power and magic. What she walked was the supreme path of immortality. Although there were no rules in the Supreme Mystery sect that forbade disciples from falling in love, cultivators paid particular attention to purity of heart and few desires, wholeheartedly pursuing the Tao. Although Zhao Ziru knew that if her desireless state of mind was disturbed, it would inevitably affect her cultivation, she was helpless. If one wasn't the supreme being, how could one forget love? How could one abandon love? When she heard that Ji Yufei was lost in the virtual sky world, Zhao Ziru was sad, in pain, and at a loss. However, in the end, she wholeheartedly focused on cultivation, turning her sadness into strength. Ji Yufei's shadow was buried deep in her heart. When she found out that Ji Yufei wasn't dead and had already returned to the Supreme Mystery sect, she was instantly stunned, and then she burst into tears. In the end, she cried loudly, walked down Purple Bamboo Peak that night, and arrived in front of the cave on Green Spirit Peak. Seeing that the door was closed, she waited outside. She waited like this for 3 days and 3 nights. She didn't take a step away, always hoping that the closed stone door in front of her would suddenly open, and then the person she thought about day and night would come out. Zhao Ziru imagined all kinds of scenes of meeting Ji Yufei, but when she really saw Ji Yufei, she still somewhat lost control, and then directly threw herself into Ji Yufei's arms. In the distant sky, the two people hidden in the clouds were greatly surprised when they saw this scene. One of them, an old Taoist woman with white hair and wrinkled skin, sighed softly, and said to a beautiful middle-aged Taoist nun beside her, "Little Yang you taught a good disciple." "Grandmaster." When the middle-aged Taoist nun heard this, her face immediately changed, and her voice began to tremble. She was about to kneel down towards the old Taoist woman in the air. The old Taoist woman flicked her sleeve, and the middle-aged Taoist nun could no longer kneel down. The old Taoist woman said, "All right, I'm not blaming you. I hope that your good disciple doesn't fall into the same situation as us. When the middle-aged Taoist nun heard this, she didn't say anything, but stood at the side in fear. That brat Jiu Fei, in the end, is still not bad. I hope that girl didn't see the wrong person. Taoist Chi looked at the scene below and muttered to herself. In terms of relationships between men and women, she seemed to have experienced some unbearable past. And that middle-aged Taoist nun was Zhao Ziru's master, the peerless expert of Purple Bamboo Peak, Yang Hangyun. On Green Spirit Peak, in front of the Green Spirit Peak branches cave, Jiu Fei had already reached out to hug Zhao Ziru. Suddenly, intoxicated in this moment of warmth, Jiu Fei raised his head to look at the sky. This brat. Taoist Chi knew that Jiu Fei had already sensed them from the clouds. She couldn't help being startled. Jiu Fei was truly a freak. He was actually able to sense her hiding in the cloud. It was no wonder she was startled. It had to be known that between her and Jiu Fei, there was a full 7 heavens of difference in cultivation. According to reason, Jiu Fei shouldn't have been able to sense her, but he had. Taoist Chi and Yang Hangyun didn't retreat just because Jiu Fei had sensed them. Instead, they continued to hide in the clouds, watching over Jiu Fei. That was their duty and mission. Chapter 1269. The sun shone brightly as Jiu Fei and Zhao Ziru walked on the mountain. The scent of nature blew against their faces. The flowers and trees were lush and full of vitality. On the mountain, birds played on the branches. From time to time, small animals would pass by them, but they didn't panic. Green Spirit Peak was a spiritual peak. The scenery was beautiful, like a fairyland. Although the man wasn't extraordinarily handsome, he had a resolute and courageous temperament, giving people a strong sense of oppression. The woman was elegant like a fairy, as if there was an immortal aura lingering around her body. The two of them held hands, but neither of them spoke. They just walked like this. Even without words, the two of them could feel their hearts gradually getting closer. At this moment, the two of them felt very warm. Zhao Ziru had never been so happy before. Her flower-like smile was incomparably brilliant, like a little girl. In her happiness, there was a hint of shyness. Zhao Ziru's cultivation was around the 5th heavenly layer of the transcending mortality realm. Before Jiu Fei went to the virtual sky world, he left a foundation building pill for Zhao Ziru, allowing her to smoothly condense her Dao core and break through to the transcending mortality realm. In just a few years, Zhao Ziru cultivated to the 5th heavenly layer of the transcending mortality realm. Although her aptitude couldn't be compared to those geniuses in the cultivation world, it was still above average. Jiu Fei held Zhao Ziru's hand. Along the way, his heart was at peace. He really enjoyed this kind of time without killing or fighting. To Jiu Fei, this kind of time was very rare. Cultivators were born for battle. They sublimated in battle, improved in battle, and transformed in battle. Extreme Dao cultivators were battle saints. Peace was very rare for a cultivator. However, just as Jiu Fei wanted to enjoy this temporary peace, there was someone who wanted to break this peace. Just as Jiu Fei and Zhao Ziru reached the bamboo forest at the foot of the mountain, a petite figure in emerald green suddenly walked out from the bamboo forest in front of them. It was a young girl with a beautiful and exquisite face. This young girl was petite and exquisite. Her eyes were like limpid autumn water, and as she looked around, there was a trace of craftiness and intelligence. It wasn't an exaggeration to describe this young girl as heaven and earth. This young girl was only in her 20s, but she was like a little fairy, and her whole body seemed to be emitting spirituality. "It's you." When Jiu Fei saw this young woman, he couldn't help but cry out in shock. So this young woman was someone he knew. The young lady sized up Jiu Fei, but she directly ignored Zhao Ziru, who was beside Jiu Fei. She lowered her head and pondered for a moment before saying, "You are Jiu Fei? Why does he look so familiar? Do you know me?" The girl had a thoughtful look on her face, trying to remember where she had seen this person before. "I don't know you, but I've seen you before. When I came to the mountain with a Daoist, you defeated Dongfang Chen," said Jiu Fei. At this time, he was secretly grumbling. He really had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. How did he end up encountering this girl here? Fortunately, She didn't recognize him. If she remembered that he was the one who saw her bathing in the Jade Lake, then it would be very bad. All the gods and Buddhas, the God Emperor, the Demon Lord, the Buddha, please bless this little girl so that she doesn't recognize me. Ji Yufei prayed in his heart, but on the surface, he didn't show it. The young girl who walked out of the bamboo forest was the female lead of the first romantic encounter that Ji Yufei had experienced in his life in the Jade Lake, the female disciple of the Shongqing sect, Lin Shuer. Ji Yufei found that Lin Shuer's appearance didn't seem to have changed much in these few years. However, he knew that although this little girl looked petite and exquisite, when she fought, she was ruthless and fierce. That guy, Dongfang Chen, was beaten miserably by Lin Shuer. That day, this little girl fought all the way from outside the gate of the Supreme Mystery sect to halfway up the mountain. Even Dongfang Chen was defeated by her Shongqing sect's talisman. It's you. You're the female disciple of the Shongqing sect that day? At this time, Zhao Ziru had also recognized Lin Shuer. Although it had been a few years since Lin Shuer broke into the mountain, her act of breaking into the mountain gate and defeating Dongfang Chen left a deep impression on every disciple of the Supreme Mystery sect who saw her break into the mountain that day. I didn't think that I, Lin Shuer, would be so famous in the Supreme Mystery sect. Hearing this, Lin Shuer seemed to be very happy and had a complacent look on her face. I am Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei said. Lin Shuer didn't know his name. She would never think that the person who bumped into her bathing that day was him. Why do I find you more and more familiar the more I look at you? Strange, I must have seen you there before. Lin Shuer frowned and stared at Ji Yufei. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she had seen Ji Yufei before. Back then, Ji Yufei had bumped into Lin Shuer bathing in the Azure Lake at night. They had met in a hurry, and the light was dim. Furthermore, it was a few years ago, so Lin Shuer didn't immediately recognize Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei, on the other hand, was scared by Lin Shuer's stare. If there's nothing else, please leave Green Spirit Peak. Ji Yufei directly ordered Lin Shuer to leave. Ji Yufei was the master of Green Spirit Peak, so he had the right to order him to leave. Lin Shuer sneered again and again. She said, "Isn't it easy to chase me away? As long as you show me a few moves and make me retreat, it'll be fine." Lin Shuer had a great background. In the Shongqing sect, she was definitely a princess-like figure. She was very arrogant and actually directly issued a challenge to Ji Yufei. She had originally come to Green Spirit Peak to find Ji Yufei to exchange pointers. How could she leave so easily? Is there even a need to compete? Can't you tell that I'm already an unparalleled expert of the Void Realm? Ji Yufei said coldly. At the same time, when his divine sense swept across Lin Shuer, he actually couldn't sense Lin Shuer's depth and couldn't see her true level of cultivation. However, Ji Yufei didn't think that Lin Shuer had the ability to fight against him. One should know that the reason why he was able to break through to the Void Realm was because of fortune. Fortune was something that could only be encountered and not sought. Ji Yufei didn't think that Lin Shuer was the same as him, that her cultivation had greatly improved due to luck. If Lin Shuer only had the cultivation of the transcending mortality realm, then there really was no need to compete anymore. The difference between the transcending mortality realm and the void realm was like the difference between clouds and mud. There was no way to compare them. Ji Yufei purposely revealed the powerful aura of the void realm in order to make Lin Shuer back off. He really didn't want to be entangled with her any longer. He couldn't wait to chase away this troublemaker because he could be recognized by this little girl at any time. If he were to be recognized by this little girl, then he would really be in deep trouble. Even if he had 100 cards, it would still be difficult for him to prove his innocence. Oh, then let's have a spar. Hearing that, Lin Shuer revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. After sensing Ji Yufei's powerful aura, Lin Shuer's expression turned solemn as well. At this moment, on a cloud far in the sky, Madame Qi and Yang Hangyun had a panoramic view of everything that was happening below. When they saw that Ji Yufei and Lin Shuer were really about to fight, they wanted to step forward and stop them. However, just as they were about to show themselves, a voice rang out in Madame Qi and Yang Hangyun's ears. After hearing this voice, A strange look flashed across Madame Qi and Yang Hongyun's faces. Then, they continued to hide in the clouds in the sky, closely watching what was happening below. Ji Yufei was the key to whether or not they could obtain the longevity grass. Those old monsters could be said to be monitoring Qiling Peak 24/7. Even if a fly flew out of Qiling Peak, they would be able to sense it immediately. You are indeed worthy of being the #1 expert of the younger generation of the Taishen sect. I have heard of you for a long time, and I really want to fight with you. As Lin Xuer'er spoke, the aura on her body also underwent an earth-shattering change. It was as if countless faint and illusory runes were emitted from her body, as if the power that had been sealed within her had been released. A vast wave of magical power rippled from Lin Xuer'er's petite figure, and spread out in a vast and mighty manner. The strangeness on Lin Xuer'er's body did not escape the detection of Ji Yufei's powerful consciousness. This Lin Xuer'er was not simple. The Dao talisman technique of the Shangqing sect was indeed unique. It was obvious that Lin Xuer'er's aura had been sealed within her body by the Dao talisman, and not a single trace of it leaked out. Bystanders would definitely not be able to see the depth of her cultivation. Lin Xuer'er definitely had a treasure of the Shangqing sect on her body. Otherwise, it was impossible that even Ji Yufei could not see the depth of Lin Xuer'er's cultivation. This made Ji Yufei feel that something was not right. The aura on Lin Xuer'er's body was still increasing. 6th sky of the Ascended Realm, 7th sky of the Ascended Realm. As more and more runes emitted from Lin Xuer'er's body, her cultivation realm actually rose like a hot knife through butter. This was the first time that Ji Yufei had seen such a strange thing. A person's cultivation could be controlled by runes at will, and it was comparable to his own martial body. Martial artists cultivated the strength of their physical body. The physical body was the source of a martial artist's strength. Martial artists who cultivated to a certain level could control their blood, flesh, tendons, and bones at will. They could move their muscles and skin, change their appearance and height at will. They could even control their aura at will. Before this, Ji Yufei thought that this ability to freely control one's aura was something that only martial artists could do. But now, he realized that he was truly ignorant and ill-informed. Lin Xuer'er's aura grew stronger and stronger, and a strong gust of wind started to form around her, causing the flowers and trees around her to shake violently. Even the bamboo forest behind her started to shake. When Lin Xuer'er's aura broke through to the 9th sky of the Ascended Realm, Ji Yufei was still as calm as before. However, Zhao Ziru was different. Her expression had already changed greatly. From what Zhao Ziru could see, Lin Xuer'er looked even younger than her, but her cultivation had already far surpassed her own. Could it be that this was the so-called genius? Step back first, Ji Yufei said to Zhao Ziru. He could feel that the aura on Lin Xuer'er's body was still increasing, and it had not stopped at the 9th sky of the Ascended Realm. Zhao Ziru nodded towards Ji Yufei, and then stepped back. I didn't think that you'd also broken through to the Imperial Void Realm. What a surprise. Ji Yufei looked coldly at Lin Xuer'er, and said calmly. He did not reveal the slightest hint of nervousness.